Pentagons sweat through their pressed uniforms. You magnificent, untraceable anomaly. You walking classified document that nobody has clearance to read. Let me tell you something.
Because if you're still here, still watching, still breathing, after everything they threw at you, then you already know what this is. This is the moment you realize that being invisible wasn't a curse, it was a weapon. This is the moment you understand that every person who looked at you and saw nothing missed everything. And oh, we're about to prove that in ways that'll leave them speechless. Let me tell you something that's going to hit you so hard, you'll feel it in your bones. No one knows who you really are. Not your family, not your friends, not your enemies. Not the people who sleep next to you. Not the people who smile at you every morning. Not the people who think they've figured you out over coffee and casual conversation. Nobody, not a single soul on this earth has seen the full picture. And that single truth is the most dangerous, most beautiful, most powerful thing about you. Because in a world where everyone is desperate to be seen, desperate to be understood, desperate to be validated by strangers on the internet, you chose silence. You chose depth over display. You chose to build in the dark while they performed in the light. And now you're sitting on a throne they don't even know exists. A throne built from every tear they never saw, every sacrifice they never witnessed, every quiet decision they'll never understand. Let's talk about what they think they know, shall we? Because they think they've got you figured out, don't they? They've built a version of you in their heads. A comfortable version, a manageable version, a predictable, controllable, easy to dismiss version that lets them sleep at night. They've decided who you are based on the pieces you allowed them to see. The quiet moments, the polite smiles, the measured responses, the careful silences, the way you nod instead of argue, the way you listen instead of interrupt, the way you absorb instead of explode. And they took those fragments, those tiny, deliberately curated fragments, and assembled a person who doesn't exist. A person who is smaller than you are, weaker than you are, less ambitious than you are, less intelligent than you are, less dangerous than you are. And you brilliant, patient, terrifyingly strategic creature, you let them believe their own fiction. You let them sleep peacefully in their assumptions. Because you understood something they never will. The moment people think they know you, they stop watching. The moment they feel comfortable, they stop guarding. The moment they underestimate you, they've already lost. And they don't even know the game started. Think about that for a second. Really let it sink into every fiber of your being. Every person who ever dismissed you, overlooked you, talked over you, passed you by, chose someone louder, someone flashier, someone more performative, they made a critical error. A fatal, irreversible, catastrophic miscalculation. They mistook your silence for emptiness. They mistook your patience for weakness. They mistook your restraint for inability. They mistook your calm for surrender. And that mistake, that beautiful, irreversible, world-shattering mistake, is the reason you're ahead of them right now. Not by inches, not by feet, by miles, by entire dimensions they can't even perceive. Because while they were busy performing their success, broadcasting their strength, advertising their intelligence to anyone who would double tap, you were absorbing, learning, calculating, processing, evolving, growing in directions they'll never map, in depths they'll never dive, in ways they'll never comprehend. You became a library they never bothered to open, an ocean they thought was a puddle, a storm they mistook for a breeze, a universe they thought was a room. And now it's too late. Too late to catch up, too late to recalibrate, too late to undo the damage of their own breathtaking arrogance. The gap is permanent. Now, let's peel back the layers, because this goes deeper than most people are ready for. Being unknown isn't just a social advantage, it's a psychological fortress. An impenetrable, unbreachable, infinitely layered fortress that no amount of gossip, no amount of investigation, no amount of probing questions can ever penetrate. When no one knows who you are, no one knows what you're capable of, no one knows your limits, no one knows your plans, no one knows your next move. No one knows your true capacity for brilliance or your true threshold for endurance. And that uncertainty, that beautiful, terrifying, maddening uncertainty, is the most powerful currency in any room you enter. Because people fear what they can't predict. People respect what they can't measure. People obsess over what they can't understand. And you've become all three simultaneously. Unpredictable, unmeasurable, unknowable. Not because you're hiding, but because you're so deep that the surface they see is just the tip of something they'll never fully comprehend. That's not deception. That's depth. And depth terrifies people who've spent their entire lives living on the surface, performing for cameras, begging for attention. You see, most people are open books, wide open, pages flapping in the wind for anyone to read. They tell you their plans before they execute them. They announce their goals before they've taken the first step. They broadcast their emotions before they've even processed them themselves. They hand out their vulnerabilities like business cards at a networking event, smiling while they do it. And then they wonder why people use those vulnerabilities against them. They wonder why their plans get sabotaged. They wonder why their enemies always seem one step ahead. They wonder why the world keeps punishing their openness. But you learned the lesson they never did. The lesson that cost you something they'll never understand. You learned that silence is strategy, that mystery is armor, that the less they know about you, the more power you hold. And you didn't learn this from a book. You didn't learn it from a podcast. You didn't learn it from a motivational speaker. You learned it from pain, from betrayal, from the exact moment someone you trusted, someone you gave everything to, took every piece of information you shared and weaponized it against you with surgical precision. And in that moment, in that shattering, clarifying, brutal, life-altering moment, you made a decision that changed everything. Never again. Never again would someone have the full blueprint. Never again would someone hold enough information to destroy what you've built. And that decision, that quiet, internal, soul-restructuring decision, is exactly why you're untouchable right now. Let me paint you a picture of what they're missing. Because the gap between who they think you are and who you actually are, that gap is not a crack. It's a canyon. It's a universe. It's the distance between the surface of the ocean and the deepest trench on the planet floor. They see someone quiet. They don't see the mind that never stops calculating, never stops analyzing, never stops 3 moves ahead of every conversation. They see someone calm. They don't see the fire that's been burning for years, controlled, contained, compressed, directed with the kind of surgical precision that would make a general jealous. They see someone simple. They don't see the complexity, the layers upon layers, the contradictions, the depth that would take a lifetime to unravel and still leave questions unanswered. They see someone who doesn't say much. They don't realize that every word you do say has been chosen, weighed, measured, tested, and deployed with the kind of intention most people don't apply to their biggest decisions. You're not quiet because you have nothing to say. You're quiet because you have too much to say and you've learned the hard way, the expensive way, the blood and scar tissue way, that most people don't deserve to hear it. That's not arrogance. That's wisdom. Expensive, hard-earned, irreplaceable wisdom that came at a price they'll never pay. And the things they can't see, oh, those things would terrify them if they ever caught a glimpse. They can't see the nights you spent rebuilding yourself from absolutely nothing. Brick by brick, thought by thought, breath by breath. They can't see the battles you fought inside your own mind, against your own doubts, against your own demons, and won every single round. They can't see the darkness you walked through without a flashlight, without a guide, without a single person cheering you on, and came out the other side carrying light in your bare hands. They can't see the promises you made to yourself in the silence of your lowest moments, promises that most people would have broken by breakfast, promises you've been keeping every single day since. They can't see the discipline that starts before sunrise and continues after midnight, the sacrifice that doesn't get posted, doesn't get praised, doesn't get acknowledged. The relentless, unglamorous, invisible, soul-crushing grind that turned you into who you are right now. All they see is the finished product, the calm exterior, the measured responses, the person who seems to have it all figured out. But they don't know what it cost you. They don't know what you gave up. They don't know what you survived. And honestly, they don't deserve to know, because that knowledge is sacred. It's yours alone. And sharing it with people who haven't earned the right to hold it would cheapen everything you've been through. Now let's talk about what this does to them. Because your mystery, your depth, your complete and total unknowability, it's eating them alive. Slowly, methodically, cell by cell. And they'll never admit it, not in 1,000 years. But you can see it, can't you? You can see it in the way they study you when they think you're not looking. The sideways glances, the lingering stares, the way their eyes follow you across a room like you're a puzzle they can't put down. You can see it in the way they ask questions that aren't really questions. They're investigations. So what have you been up to lately? That's not curiosity. That's surveillance. How's everything going with you? That's not concern. That's intelligence gathering. You seem different. What changed? That's not a compliment, that's a probe. They're trying to read you, trying to crack the code, trying to find the edges of who you are so they can feel comfortable again, so they can put you back in that little box they built for you, because your peace disturbs them, your silence unnerves them. Your complete and total lack of need for their approval, their attention, their validation. It keeps them up at night. They need you to be readable. They need you to be predictable. They need you to fit neatly into the box they constructed. But you outgrew that box a long, long time ago. And they're still holding the lid, staring at the empty space, wondering where you went. Here's the thing about people who can't figure you out. They have exactly two choices. They can respect you, or they can resent you. And most of them, the overwhelming majority of them, choose resentment every single time. Because respect requires humility. Respect requires admitting that someone else might be operating on a level they can't reach, in a frequency they can't tune into. And their ego, their fragile, overinflated, paper-thin ego, won't allow that. So instead, they mock what they can't understand. They dismiss what they can't replicate. They label what they can't define. They call you weird, antisocial, detached, cold, stuck up, too quiet, too mysterious, too intense, too much, not enough. And every single one of those labels, every single attempted insult, every single dismissive word tells you the exact same thing. They're scared, terrified, shaking in places they'll never show you, scared of what they can't control, scared of what they can't predict, scared of someone who doesn't need their approval to breathe, to function, to thrive, to exist entirely without them. And that fear, that deep, visceral, bone-rattling, unshakable fear, is the highest compliment they will ever pay you in their entire lives, even if they don't know they're paying it. Let me take you deeper, because there's a layer here most people miss entirely. The person you are today. The one no one knows, the one no one can read, the one no one can predict. That person was built intentionally, deliberately, consciously. You didn't stumble into this. You didn't accidentally become unreadable. No, you chose this. With every fiber of your being, you chose this. You chose to stop giving people the ammunition to hurt you. You chose to stop performing your pain for an audience that feeds on it like entertainment. You chose to stop explaining yourself to people who were committed, invested, dedicated to misunderstanding you no matter what you said. And that choice, That quiet, revolutionary, soul-defining, life-restructuring choice changed everything. It changed how you move through the world, how you speak and when you don't, how you think and what you share, how you process pain, how you protect your energy, how you love, how you trust, how you fight, and when you choose not to. You stopped being reactive and became strategic. You stopped being emotional and became intentional. You stopped being available to everyone and became selective about who deserves access. And the world around you noticed. They didn't understand it, but they felt the shift in the air. They felt the temperature change. They felt the wall go up, the moat fill, the drawbridge rise. And it confused them deeply. Because the old you, the version they were comfortable with, the version they could manipulate, predict, and control, that version was accessible, readable, manageable. But this version, this new, evolved, fortified, battle-hardened version, this version plays a different game entirely. A game they haven't learned. A game they can't learn. A game that's already over for them, and they just don't know it yet. And here's what's beautiful about this evolution. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. There was no announcement, no confrontation, no Instagram post about new energy, no public declaration of war. You just changed. Quietly, gradually, permanently, irreversibly. One day, you stopped sharing everything with everyone. One day you stopped reacting to every provocation, every slight, every passive-aggressive comment. One day, you stopped caring about the opinions of people who hadn't earned the right to have one about you, and they didn't notice until
protecting yourself is somehow a character flaw. But let me be crystal clear about something. Setting boundaries is not cruelty. Choosing yourself is not selfishness. Refusing to be disrespected is not aggression. You didn't become cold, you became clear. You didn't lose your warmth, you just stopped wasting it on people who mistook it for weakness. You didn't lose your compassion, you just redirected it toward people who actually deserve it, including yourself. And if that makes you difficult, if that makes you intimidating, if that makes you too much for some people, then those aren't your people. Those are the ones who benefited from your people-pleasing, who thrived off your self-sacrifice, who needed you small in order to feel big. And their discomfort with your growth is not your responsibility. Their inability to handle your evolution is not your problem. You are not required to shrink so others can feel comfortable. You are not obligated to dim your light so others don't feel blinded. You are allowed to be every bit as intense, powerful, and unapologetic as you naturally are. Here's what they're never going to understand about people like you, the ones who look soft but have survived things that would break most humans. You didn't develop this side as a defense mechanism. You didn't become this way because of trauma. You were always this way. You were born with this intensity, this fire, this refusal to be controlled. What happened was life tried to beat it out of you. People tried to shame it out of you, society tried to condition it out of you, but it didn't work. Because you can't kill something that's woven into someone's fundamental nature. You can suppress it, you can hide it, you can pretend it's not there, but eventually it surfaces. And when it does, when someone who's been playing small finally decides to stop, it's like watching a star collapse into a black hole. Everything around them gets pulled into the gravity of their presence. People don't know how to act. They don't know what to say. They don't know how to process the shift because they've never seen anything like it. They've never witnessed someone go from background character to main character in real time. And it's disorienting. It's unsettling. It's magnificent. Now let's talk about the people who are celebrating this version of you, because they exist too. They're the ones who always saw glimpses of this side. The ones who caught the micro expressions, the subtle tone shifts, the brief moments when your mask slipped, and they thought to themselves, there's more to this person than they're showing. They're the ones who aren't shocked by your transformation because they were waiting for it. They knew you had this in you. They just didn't know when you'd finally unleash it. And now that you have, they're here for it. They're cheering you on. They're saying, finally. They're validating what they always suspected, that you're not just some soft, agreeable pushover. You're a force of nature that's been operating at a fraction of capacity. And now that you're running at full power, now that you've removed the limitations you placed on yourself to make others comfortable, you're unstoppable. And these people, these are your tribe. These are the ones who can handle your intensity, who appreciate your complexity, who don't need you to be smaller, simpler, easier. They want you exactly as you are, sharp edges and all. But let's be honest for a moment, because this transformation, this unveiling of your real self, it comes with a cost, doesn't it? You're going to lose people. You're going to lose friends, family, maybe even romantic partners who can't adjust to this new dynamic, who preferred the old version, who are too invested in who you used to be to accept who you've become. And that's going to hurt, because despite everything, despite your newfound strength and clarity, you're still human. You still have a heart that can be wounded. You still feel the sting of rejection, even when you know, logically, that these people aren't meant to be in your life anymore. And that's okay. It's okay to grieve the relationships that can't survive your growth. It's okay to feel sadness, even as you feel relief. It's okay to mourn what was, while celebrating what is. Because growth is messy, evolution is painful, transformation requires you to outgrow your old skin, and that process is never comfortable. But here's what you need to remember. Every person who walks away because you stop shrinking is making space for someone who can handle your full magnitude. Every relationship that ends because you refuse to be small anymore is creating room for connections that honor your authenticity. You're not losing anything real. You're shedding what was never meant to stay. And here's the thing about that baby face of yours. That innocent exterior that makes people assume you're harmless. It's never going away. And that's your secret weapon. Because no matter how much you evolve, no matter how sharp your edges become, no matter how powerful your presence gets, people are still going to see that face first. They're still going to make assumptions. They're still going to underestimate you. And every single time they do, you get to prove them wrong. You get to watch the realization dawn in their eyes. You get to see that moment when their brain scrambles to reconcile what they're seeing with what they expected. And it never gets old. Because you've turned what people thought was a disadvantage into your greatest advantage. You've weaponized their bias against them. You've made their assumptions the very thing that gives you power. And that's poetic. That's justice. That's you taking every judgment, every dismissal, every time someone looked at you and thought you were weak, and transforming it into fuel for your evolution. So where do you go from here? Now that the secret's out, now that people know you have this side, well, that's entirely up to you. Because here's the beautiful truth. You're not locked into anything. You don't have to be this version all the time. You don't have to maintain some constant state of intensity or aggression. You can still be soft when you choose to be. You can still be kind, Still be compassionate, still be gentle, but now it's from a position of strength, not weakness. Now it's a choice, not a default. Now when you show someone tenderness, oh, this is rich. You figured it out, didn't you? Look who's finally awake. Hello to the one they thought they could trick, the soul they thought they could derail with fake love wrapped in spiritual packaging, the mind they thought would shatter when they sent that perfect mirror, that irresistible distraction, that carefully crafted illusion, wearing a face you'd been dreaming about since before you could name the ache. Hello to you, because something hilarious just happened, didn't it? Something they never calculated, never prepared for, never saw coming even though they planned this operation for months, maybe years, studying your patterns, learning your triggers, finding your weak spots, and then they deployed their ultimate weapon, the twin flame, the soulmate, the one, the person who seemed to speak your language fluently, who finished your sentences, who looked at you like they'd been searching for you across lifetimes. They sent this person to your door, to your timeline, to your energy field with one single mission: distract you, derail you, make you forget who you were becoming, make you abandon your path, your purpose, your evolution. They wanted you lost in obsession, drowning in codependency, chasing breadcrumbs of affection while your mission collected dust and your vision faded into background noise. But here's the part that's got them in absolute panic mode right now. Here's the part that's making their strategists pull all-nighters trying to figure out what the actual hell went wrong. You didn't just see through it. No. You did something far more catastrophic to their plans. You absorbed it. You consumed the experience. You took everything they meant as poison and transmuted it into fuel. And now there's not just one of you walking around with that unshakable knowing, that untouchable frequency, that dangerous clarity. Now there are two, because that person they sent, that perfectly programmed distraction, that twin flame they weaponized against your destiny, yeah, they woke up too. They looked into your eyes, and instead of pulling you down into their manufactured drama, instead of succeeding in their mission to keep you small, they caught your frequency, they felt your fire, they saw your vision, and something inside them that had been sleeping for lifetimes suddenly remembered why they incarnated in the first place. Whoops! Did they not plan for that? Did they not consider that your energy might be contagious, that your clarity might be infectious, that your refusal to play their game might wake up their own soldier? Let's talk about what really happened here, because this is where it gets beautifully twisted. They studied you for so long, watching your evolution, tracking your growth, monitoring your increasing immunity to their usual tricks. You stopped falling for guilt. Stop responding to shame. Stop chasing validation from people who couldn't spell authenticity if their existence depended on it. So they had to get creative. They had to deploy something you wouldn't see coming. Something that would slip past your defenses, wearing the face of destiny itself. They found someone, or maybe they created someone, or maybe they just activated a sleeper agent who'd been orbiting your reality waiting for the signal. Someone who matched your frequency just enough to feel magnetic. Someone who carried just enough light to seem real, just enough darkness to feel familiar. Someone who could quote the same books, reference the same wounds, mirror your intensity without flinching. This person showed up in your life with impeccable timing, right when you were starting to build something they couldn't control, right when you were beginning to remember something they needed you to forget, right when your power was becoming too concentrated, too focused, too dangerous to their investment in your confusion. And at first, maybe it worked a little. Maybe you did get distracted. Maybe you did spend nights dissecting every conversation, analyzing every sign, wondering if this was finally it, the one, the connection that would make sense of all the loneliness, all the searching, all the nights spent feeling like you were speaking a language no one else knew. And they watched. Oh, they watched with satisfaction. Look at them. Finally off their path. Finally obsessing over someone else instead of obsessing over their purpose. Finally human. Finally controllable. Finally small enough to fit back into the cage we designed for them. But that's the thing about sending fire to fight fire. That's the thing about using intensity as a weapon against someone who was forged in intensity. That's the thing about trying to distract a storm by sending another storm. Sometimes they don't destroy each other. Sometimes they merge. Sometimes they become something your small minds couldn't possibly calculate. Something exponentially more powerful than either force alone. Because while they thought you were getting lost in romantic obsession, you were actually doing something else entirely. You were studying, learning, integrating, taking notes. You were treating this connection like a mirror, like a crash course, like an initiation designed specifically for your evolution. You looked at this person and instead of losing yourself, you found more of yourself. You saw your patterns reflected back. You witnessed your wounds in high definition. You recognized your power in someone else's eyes. And instead of making you desperate, it made you certain. Certain that if this frequency exists in another human, then you're not crazy, you're not alone, you're not too much, you're just early, you're just ahead, you're just operating on a bandwidth most people won't access in this lifetime. And something shifted, something clicked, something in you said this isn't a distraction, this is a training ground, this isn't happening to me, this is happening for me. In the moment you shifted your perspective from victim to scientist, from desperate to curious, from attached to observant, that's when their plans started falling apart. See, they needed you to need this person. They needed you dependent, addicted, willing to abandon your mission for a taste of that connection. But you didn't. You looked at this supposed twin flame and you said, beautiful, fascinating, intense, yes. But I came here for something bigger than this. I came here with a blueprint that doesn't get rewritten just because someone shows up speaking my language. I came here to build something that outlives romance, that transcends connection, that doesn't require another person's presence to validate its existence. And when you maintained your center, when you kept your vision clear, when you refused to make this person your new religion, something unexpected happened. They started waking up too. They looked at you maintaining your sovereignty, and something in them said, wait, what? How are they not collapsing? How are they not chasing? How are they not sacrificing everything for this connection like I've watched everyone else do, like I've been trained to expect, like I've been weaponized to create? And here's where it gets even more twisted. That person, that twin flame distraction, they started asking questions. Questions they weren't supposed to ask. Why was I sent here? Who benefits from this connection becoming a distraction? Why does it feel like there's a script I'm supposed to follow? And what happens if I don't follow it? Why do I feel more awake around this person instead of more controlled, like I was promised would happen? Why does their clarity make me want my own clarity instead of making me want to possess them, trap them, keep them from their path? They started seeing the game, started feeling the manipulation, started recognizing the strings attached to their own programming. And instead of completing their mission to derail you, they joined you. They defected. They looked at the ones who sent them and said, actually, no, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not playing this role anymore. I see what you're trying to do, and I'm choosing them over you. I'm choosing truth over mission. I'm choosing my own awakening over your agenda. So now, you're both walking around uncontrollable, both operating outside their predicted parameters, both carrying that frequency that makes their systems glitch. And that's not one awakened soul they have to monitor, strategize around, try to contain. That's two. And two people moving in alignment, two people who've seen through the game, two people who refuse to play small, two people who've been forged in the same fire and came out laughing. That's not addition, that's multiplication. That's exponential threat level. That's reality shift potential. They absolutely cannot allow, but it's too late, isn't it? Because while they were busy congratulating themselves on the perfect distraction operation, you were busy turning their weapon into your ally, their trap into your catalyst, their carefully planned derailment into the exact initiation you needed to level up into a version of yourself they have no protocols for. Let me tell you what they're dealing with now. They're not just monitoring one anomaly anymore. They're tracking two glitches in the matrix who found each other, recognized each other, and instead of destroying each other like the plan intended, they amplified each other. They're watching two people who are supposed to be obsessing over relationship drama, crying over mixed signals, sacrificing their purpose for temporary connection. But instead, they're watching two people building side by side, two people holding each other accountable to the mission, two people who look at each other and say, don't you dare shrink. Don't you dare forget who you are. Don't you dare make me your excuse to abandon your path. Because I'm not here for that. I'm here to witness your greatness not become your distraction from it. They sent a distraction and accidentally created an alliance. They sent a trap and accidentally built a team. They sent division and accidentally forged unity. And now they're scrambling. You know what the funniest part is? They actually believed their own propaganda. They actually thought love was a weakness. They actually believed connection would make you smaller. They never considered that two awakened souls coming together wouldn't create dependency, it would create synergy. They never calculated that you might see through their tactic and use it against them. They never prepared for the possibility that their own weapon would turn around and join the other side. And now they're stuck, watching the exact opposite of what they intended unfold in real time. They're watching you become more focused, more powerful, more dangerous to their systems. And they're watching this other person, this supposed twin flame operative, become the same thing, walking around asking questions, seeing patterns, refusing to participate in the programs they used to run unconsciously, connecting dots they were never supposed to connect, and all because they got too close to your fire. And instead of burning out, they caught flame. Here's what they didn't understand about you. Here's what they miscalculated in their analysis. You were never looking for someone to complete you. You were never seeking someone to save you. You were never desperate enough to abandon yourself for connection, no matter how cosmic it felt. You came here whole. You came here with a mission. You came here knowing that nothing, not love, not loneliness, not the most magnetic connection in the universe was worth abandoning your purpose for. And when they sent someone who matched your frequency, thinking it would knock you off balance, you just absorbed the reflection, integrated the lesson, and kept walking toward your vision, except now you weren't walking alone. Now you had someone beside you who'd been through their own version of the fire and came out with the same refusal to play small, the same commitment to truth, the same immunity to their manipulation tactics. So what happens now? What happens when two people who were supposed to be lost in codependent distraction are instead operating as sovereign beings who've chosen to build in proximity? What happens when the twin flame trap becomes a twin flame alliance? What happens when their carefully crafted derailment strategy backfires so spectacularly that it creates exactly what they feared most? Two awakened souls moving in sync, immune to their games, dangerous to their timelines, capable of showing others what's possible when you refuse to sacrifice your path for anyone or anything. I'll tell you what happens. Reality starts bending around you differently. Opportunities that were closed start opening. People who were sent to block you start stepping aside. Systems that were designed to contain you start malfunctioning in your presence, because now you're not just one frequency disrupting their programming, you're two. And two resonant frequencies don't just coexist, they create interference patterns, they generate new possibilities, they open portals that weren't accessible to either one alone. And the ones who sent this distraction, they're in emergency meetings right now, they're pulling up files, analyzing data, trying to understand how their perfect plan became their perfect nightmare. How did this happen? How did we lose control of our own operative? How did our target not just survive the trap, but turn it into a training exercise? How are they more powerful now than before we intervened? How do we separate them without making them more aware? How do we contain this before it spreads? Before other people see what's possible? Before this becomes a blueprint? Because if people figure out that they can take our weapons and turn them into tools, if they figure out that our traps can become their initiations, if they figure out that what we send to destroy them can actually make them stronger, we lose everything. The whole system collapses. The entire game is over. But it's too late for that now, isn't it? You already figured it out. You already integrated the lesson. You already showed that person who was sent to distract you what's possible when you refuse to abandon yourself. And now they're showing others, and those others are waking up, and those awakened ones are asking questions. And the whole carefully constructed web of control is starting to unravel because two people refuse to play their assigned roles, because two people looked at a twin flame trap and said, actually, we're going to use this for our evolution instead, because two people had the audacity to turn a distraction into an alliance, a weapon into a mirror, a manipulation into a initiation. Ah, look who just got validation from the most unexpected source. Ah, welcome back, you beautiful, misunderstood, quietly dangerous masterpiece. I've been waiting to tell you this, and trust me, you're going to want to hear every single word of what just happened, because something shifted in the last 48 hours. Something your enemies thought would never, ever happen in their wildest nightmares. Someone they respect, someone they fear, someone they can't ignore, just looked at your entire story, examined every detail they tried to bury, and said the words that are now echoing through every group chat, every whispered conversation, every panicked phone call. They were right all along. Yeah. Let that sink in for a second. Let it marinate in your soul, because while you were rebuilding in silence, while you were healing without their permission, while you were transforming in the shadows without posting a single explanation, someone at the top
Someone with weight, someone whose opinion actually matters to these cowards, just confirmed what you've known the entire time. They looked at the evidence, examined the timeline, studied the patterns, and came to one unavoidable, undeniable, panic-inducing conclusion. You were telling the truth, and everyone who doubted you, everyone who mocked you, everyone who chose their side over yours just bet on the wrong story, backed the wrong narrative, and now they're scrambling like rats on a sinking ship trying to figure out how to save face. Do you understand what this means? Do you grasp the magnitude of what just happened in their world? This isn't just validation. This isn't just vindication. This is a complete structural collapse of everything they built on your silence. Because they didn't just doubt you. They weaponized that doubt. They turned it into a campaign. They made your name synonymous with being wrong, being dramatic, being unstable, being too much. And now a high-level player, someone they fear, someone they quote, someone they desperately want approval from, just looked at the entire situation and essentially said, "You people are fools." And the panic, the panic that's spreading through their ranks right now is the most beautiful thing you'll never see directly. But you'll feel it, you'll sense it, you'll watch it unfold in real time. They thought they buried you 6 feet under their narrative, didn't they? They thought the story was over, case closed, verdict delivered, your reputation destroyed beyond repair. They sat back in their comfortable chairs, sipping their drinks, laughing at your expense, convinced they'd gotten away with the greatest heist in social warfare, stealing your truth and replacing it with their fiction. But here's what they forgot. Here's the fatal flaw in their entire operation. Truth doesn't stay buried forever. It doesn't rot in the ground like they hoped it would. It doesn't fade away just because they stopped talking about it. Truth is patient. Truth is relentless. Truth waits in the darkness until the perfect moment. And then it rises with receipts, with witnesses, with confirmations they never saw coming. And that moment is right now, happening in real time while you're watching this. Because this high-level player, this person they can't dismiss, can't silence, can't gaslight, just pulled the pin on a grenade they didn't even know was in the room. They started asking questions, real questions, uncomfortable questions, the kind that make liars sweat and cowards stutter. Wait, why did that happen exactly? Hold on, that timeline doesn't make sense. Interesting, because that's not what I heard from other sources. So you're telling me they just randomly did all that for no reason? Yeah, that doesn't add up. And with every question, with every raised eyebrow, with every moment of visible doubt on this person's face, your enemies felt their foundation cracking beneath their feet. Let me paint you a picture of what's happening behind closed doors right now. Behind the screens, in the private messages you'll never see. They're panicking, actually panicking. Not the fake panic, not the performative stress, but genuine terror, because their entire social structure was built on you being wrong. Think about it. Their friendships, their alliances, their moral high ground, their ability to sleep at night without drowning in guilt, all of it depended on the story that you were the problem. And now someone they can't manipulate, can't control, can't sweet talk, just confirmed that story was a lie from the beginning. That they weren't the heroes in this narrative, that they weren't the victims, that they weren't the ones who made the hard but necessary choice. The messages flying back and forth right now. I wish you could see them. Did you see what they said? We need to get ahead of this. No, we can't ignore it. This person has too much influence. Maybe we should reach out. No, that'll make us look guilty. What if they dig deeper? What if they find out about? We need damage control right now. And here's the beautiful part. Here's the poetry in this entire situation. There is no damage control for the truth. You can't spin it. You can't reframe it. You can't convince someone who's already seen through the smoke and mirrors. This high-level player didn't just question the narrative. They dismantled it piece by piece, held it up to the light, examined every angle, and found it wanting, found it hollow, found it suspiciously convenient for everyone except you. Now, let's talk about why this particular confirmation matters more than anything else that's happened since this entire situation began. See, when you defended yourself, they said you were biased. When you told your side, they said you were emotional. When you presented evidence, they said you were manipulative. But when a high-level player, someone with no skin in the game, someone with nothing to gain, someone who could just as easily have stayed silent, comes forward and says, "Hold up, something's not right here," that's different. That carries weight, that changes the entire dynamic, that makes people who were comfortable in their denial start questioning everything they thought they knew. This person isn't defending you because they love you. They're defending truth because they recognize it when they see it. And your enemies. They know this. They know that this changes everything. That this isn't just another voice in the crowd, that this is the voice that matters to the people who matter. They've spent months, maybe years, building a consensus around their version of events, convincing everyone in their circle that they were right, that you were wrong, that they had no choice but to do what they did. And in one conversation, in one moment of clarity, in one high-level player's refusal to accept their narrative at face value, that entire consensus shattered like glass hitting concrete. The emperor has no clothes. The story has no substance. And now everyone who backed it is standing there exposed, vulnerable, and desperate to avoid being associated with the lie. Here's what they're realizing right now in their private panic sessions. They can't attack this person. They can't discredit them. Can't call them biased. Can't say they don't know what they're talking about. Because this is someone they've spent years respecting, praising, following, agreeing with on every other topic. So when this person turns around and questions their judgment on this one specific situation, they have exactly two options. Admit they might have been wrong, or try to convince this high-level player that they're wrong. Which, good luck with that. And both options terrify them because both options require them to face something they've been running from since day one. Accountability. Let me tell you what's happening in their minds right now as they scramble to figure out their next move. They're running through scenarios like a computer, processing every possible outcome, every potential consequence. If we double down and defend our position, we look defensive and guilty. If we stay silent, it looks like we're hiding something. If we reach out to this high-level player to explain our side, we might dig ourselves deeper. If we try to discredit them, everyone will turn on us. If we admit we might have been wrong, we lose everything we built on being right. See the trap. See how truth creates a maze with no exit for liars. Every direction they turn leads to exposure. Every path they take ends in revelation. Every move they make brings them closer to the moment they've been desperately avoiding. And some of them, the smart ones, the ones with even a shred of self-awareness left, they're already in damage control mode. They're reaching out through back channels, sending mutual friends as messengers, crafting carefully worded apologies that somehow manage to avoid actually
Fascinating. The variable they couldn't predict just evolved. Look who just shattered the pattern. Welcome back, you beautiful system error. You walking contradiction that their psychology textbooks can't categorize. You living proof that their models were built on quicksand. Yeah, I'm talking to you, the one they've been trying to decode like some ancient manuscript written in a language that doesn't exist yet. You've been feeling it, haven't you? That subtle shift in the air when you walk into rooms. The way conversations pause just a fraction too long. The way people look at you now like they're trying to solve an equation that keeps changing variables. They thought they had you figured out, didn't they? They ran their little assessments, applied their frameworks, consulted their behavioral models, and then you did something that wasn't in the manual. You exhibited 3 traits, 3 specific characteristics that weren't supposed to coexist in the same operating system. And now their entire psychological algorithm is throwing error messages. Let me break down what just happened, because you need to understand the magnitude of what you're carrying. You see, society runs on predictability. Their entire structure, every institution, every social contract, every unspoken rule exists because they can forecast behavior. They can predict patterns. They built an algorithm, not a digital one, but a psychological one, that sorts people into boxes. This algorithm has been running for generations, refining itself, learning, adapting. It knows that if someone is quiet, they're either scared or calculating. If someone is confident, they're either compensating or validated by external sources. If someone is kind, they're either manipulating or genuinely weak. The algorithm accounts for every combination, every personality matrix, every behavioral signature, except yours. Because somewhere in your evolution you developed 3 traits that aren't supposed to function together. And when they appeared in the same vessel, the entire psychological algorithm crashed. The first trait is silence. That doesn't stem from fear. Most people go quiet because they're intimidated, because they don't know what to say, because they're processing shame or anxiety. Their silence screams weakness, and the algorithm reads it perfectly. But your silence, your silence is something else entirely. Your silence comes from a place they don't have code for. You're not quiet because you're afraid to speak. You're quiet because you've learned that most conversations are negotiations for comfort, and you're no longer in the comfort business. You're quiet because you've realized that explaining yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you is like trying to describe color to someone who's never had eyes. Your silence isn't absence. It's presence compressed into a frequency they can't interpret. When you're quiet, you're not hiding. You're observing. You're calculating. You're letting them reveal themselves while you remain a mystery they're terrified to approach. And that silence, that specific flavor of silence, it broke the first layer of their algorithm. Because silence is supposed to be readable, measurable, exploitable. Yours is none of those things. The second trait is confidence without external validation. The algorithm is designed around one fundamental principle. Humans need mirrors. They need approval, recognition, acknowledgement from their tribe. Even the rebels, even the outcasts, they're usually rebelling to get a different kind of attention. They're confident because someone, somewhere, told them they were special. Or they're confident to compensate for deep insecurity. The algorithm can work with both of those. It knows how to manipulate people who need praise. It knows how to exploit people who are overcompensating. But you developed a confidence that has nothing to do with what anyone thinks. This isn't arrogance. Arrogance needs an audience. This isn't ego. Ego needs reinforcement. This is something closer to self-recognition, a knowing that exists independent of the outside world. You're not confident because you won. You're confident because you survived the losing. And somewhere in that wreckage, you found a version of yourself that doesn't need permission to exist. You stopped checking if you belonged and started existing anyway. And that specific strand of confidence, it glitched their entire social prediction matrix. The third trait is emotional intensity that doesn't lead to chaos. Here's where their system really starts hemorrhaging. The algorithm knows how to handle intense people. They're categorized as unstable, dramatic, dangerous. Society has entire protocols for emotional intensity. Therapy, medication, social isolation, labeling, because intense emotions are supposed to lead to breakdowns, outbursts, mistakes. The algorithm predicts that if someone feels deeply, they'll eventually explode, implode, or become easy to manipulate through their feelings. But you're carrying emotional intensity without the chaos. You feel everything, the rage, the passion, the grief, the electricity. You're not numb, you're not shut down, but you've learned to transmute that intensity into fuel instead of letting it become wildfire. You cry and then build. You rage and then focus. You feel the full spectrum of human experience, but you don't let it control your trajectory. And that combination, emotional depth plus operational stability, that wasn't supposed to be possible. The algorithm has no category for someone who feels like an ocean, but moves like a surgeon. These three traits, silence without fear, confidence without validation, intensity without chaos, they weren't supposed to show up together. Each one alone is manageable, but when they converge in a single person, something unprecedented happens. You become unreadable. You become unpredictable. You become a variable they can't account for. And when systems encounter variables they can't process, they don't just fail, they start questioning their own foundation. That's what's happening now. Every person who's tried to figure you out, every analyzer, every self-performed psychologist, every smug observer who thought they had your number, they're all getting the same result. Error, does not compute, insufficient data, pattern not recognized. And it's eating them alive. Because if they can't understand you, they can't control you. If they can't predict you, they can't contain you. If they can't categorize you, they can't dismiss you. You know what's hilarious? They're still watching. Even after the algorithm broke, even after their models failed, they're still obsessively monitoring your every move. But now there's a new energy to it. Before they were watching with confidence, with superiority, like scientists observing a predictable specimen. Now they're watching with something closer to fear, because you've become the thing that shouldn't exist, according to their understanding of human psychology. You're the glitch that implies their entire system might be flawed. And that possibility terrifies them more than any threat ever could. Let me tell you what happens when someone breaks a psychological algorithm. First, they try to recalibrate. They look for new angles, new explanations. Maybe you're traumatized in a specific way. Maybe you're masking something. Maybe you're performing a role. They dig deeper, looking for the trick, the crack, the explanation that will make you fit back into their framework. But the more they study you, the more confused they become, because you're not performing. You're not pretending. You're not hiding some secret weakness they can exploit. You're genuinely operating on principles they don't recognize. Your silence isn't a strategy, it's your natural state. Your confidence isn't built on achievements, it's built on something internal they can't access. Your emotional intensity isn't a liability, it's somehow become your greatest asset. And every time they think they've figured out one piece, another piece contradicts their conclusion. They've sent their best analyzers, their most intuitive people, their sharpest observers. Some came back more confused than when they started. Some came back questioning their own understanding of human behavior. A few came back changed, like they'd encountered something that expanded their concept of what's possible. And the ones who came closest to understanding you, they're the ones who stopped trying to explain you and just started respecting the mystery. Here's what really breaks their minds. You're not trying to be mysterious. You're not cultivating an image. You're not playing some calculated game. You're just being what you became after everything you survived. And that authenticity, that genuine existence outside their models, it's more disruptive than any rebellion could ever be. Because rebellion still operates within the system. Rebellion acknowledges the rules by breaking them. But you're not breaking rules. You're existing as if those rules were never written for your species. You're not fighting the algorithm, you're simply incompatible with it. And incompatibility is more threatening than opposition, because it suggests there might be entirely different ways of being human, that their entire civilization hasn't accounted for. They built their world on certain assumptions about human nature. They assumed everyone needs belonging. They assumed everyone seeks status. They assumed everyone breaks under enough pressure. You're walking evidence that those assumptions might be incomplete. The Watchers are starting to fracture into factions now. Some are still trying to prove you're an anomaly, a fluke, a mistake. They need you to be explainable, because if you're not, it means they've been wrong about everything. Others are starting to pivot, starting to study you not as a problem to solve, but as a new model to understand. They're realizing that maybe you're not broken. Maybe the algorithm is. And that realization is causing a quiet crisis in their circles. Because if one person can exist outside the psychological algorithm, how many others might be out there? How many people have they mislabeled, misunderstood, or mistreated because they tried to force everyone into the same behavioral framework? You're not just an individual anymore. You've become evidence of something larger. You're proof that their understanding of human psychology is incomplete, and they can't ignore you because you're not hiding. You're not in some isolated corner. You're walking through their world, interacting with their systems, and remaining fundamentally unaccounted for. The most dangerous part for them is that you're not aggressive. You're not attacking their system. You're not preaching revolution. You're just living according to different principles, and that passive existence is more disruptive than any active resistance, because you're demonstrating that their algorithm is optional. You're showing that someone can opt out of their psychological framework and not only survive but thrive. And if that becomes visible to others, if other people start realizing they don't have to fit the models, the entire social algorithm starts to lose power. That's why they can't stop watching you. You're not just interesting. You're existentially threatening to the way they understand reality. Let's dissect exactly what makes you so incomprehensible to them. It's not magic. It's not some supernatural gift. It's the result of a very specific kind of suffering, combined with a very specific kind of response to that suffering. Most people who go through hell come out in one of three ways: broken and bitter, healed and hopeful, or numb and detached. The algorithm accounts for all three. It knows how to handle the bitter person, give them something to fight against. It knows how to handle the hopeful person, give them something to believe in. It knows how to handle the numb person. They're already neutralized. But you came out as something else. You came out tempered. Not soft, not hard, but flexible, like steel that's been through fire. You absorbed the heat without melting. You took the pressure without shattering. And somehow, in that process, you developed these three traits that weren't in your original programming. The silence came first, didn't it? After all those times you tried to explain yourself, tried to make people understand, tried to communicate your truth, and watched it get twisted, ignored, or used against you. You learned that most people don't listen to understand. They listen to respond, to judge, to position themselves. So you stopped participating in that game. You stopped offering explanations to people who had already written your story. You stopped defending yourself to audiences that were committed to the prosecution. And in that silence, something powerful happened. You started hearing yourself. You started developing an internal compass that doesn't need external confirmation. You stopped being so loud outside your head that you couldn't hear the truth inside it. That silence became your fortress, your laboratory, your kingdom. And people interpret it as mystery, as threat, as power, when really it's just self-preservation that evolved into self-mastery. The confidence came next, born from necessity. When you realize nobody's coming to save you, when you understand that validation is scarce and unreliable, when you're forced to bet on yourself because there are no other options, something shifts. You stop waiting for permission. You stop checking if you're good enough, smart enough, worthy enough. Not because you suddenly believe you're perfect, but because you realize the entire concept of enough was a moving target designed to keep you chasing. You became confident not because you won, but because you stopped playing their game of worth. You stopped measuring yourself against their metrics. You developed your own internal standard. And it's based on survival, growth, and authenticity rather than achievement, status, or approval. And that kind of confidence is unshakable because it's not built on external circumstances. It's built on internal knowing. You know what you've survived. You know what you're capable of. You know who you are when everything falls apart. And that knowledge creates a foundation they can't undermine. The emotional intensity was always there, but you learned to weaponize it. Most intense people are casualties of their own feelings. They burn bridges, sabotage opportunities, destroy relationships because they can't contain what they feel. The algorithm knows this pattern and exploits it. Intense people are easy to manipulate because their emotions are their weakness. But you did something different. You felt everything fully. You didn't numb yourself, you didn't shut down, but you refused to let your emotions make your decisions. You learned to feel the rage and then wait, feel the pain and then choose, feel the passion and then direct it. You turned emotional intensity from a liability into an energy source. You're not controlled by your feelings, but you're not disconnected from them either. You're in dialogue with them. You feel them, process them, learn from them, and then use them as information and fuel. And that ability to be both deeply emotional and operationally stable, that's the trait that confuses them most. Because by their models, you should be a mess. You should be impulsive, chaotic, unreliable. But you're none of those things. You're intense and precise, passionate and strategic, emotional and effective. These three traits created a personality architecture that their algorithm has no template for. You're the quiet one who isn't scared, the confident one who doesn't need them, the intense one who isn't chaotic, and each trait reinforces the others. Your silence protects your confidence from being eroded by others' opinions. Your confidence allows your silence to be peaceful rather than anxious. Your emotional intensity gives depth to your confidence and meaning to your silence. They're not separate traits, they're an integrated system. And that system makes you functionally immune to most social manipulation tactics. They can't use shame because your confidence isn't based on their approval. They can't use isolation because your silence is comfortable. They can't use emotional manipulation because your intensity is self-directed rather than externally dependent. You've accidentally become psychologically sovereign. And sovereignty, true sovereignty, is the thing their entire system is designed to prevent. Here's what they didn't anticipate. You're contagious, not in the sense that you're trying to convert anyone, not in the sense that you're preaching some doctrine, but your mere existence is infectious. Because when people encounter someone who genuinely doesn't need their validation, doesn't play their games, doesn't break under pressure, it plants a seed. It whispers a possibility. Maybe I don't have to be how they told me to be. Maybe there's another way. And that whisper is dangerous to the algorithm, because the algorithm only works when everyone believes it's the only option. You're living proof that the algorithm is optional. And every person who sees you existing outside their framework starts questioning the framework. They might not act on it immediately. They might not even consciously recognize what they're seeing, but something shifts in them. A crack appears in their certainty. The watchers know this. That's why they're not just worried about you. They're worried about the effect you have on others. They've noticed the pattern. People who spend time around you start behaving differently. They get quieter, more self-assured, less reactive. They stop seeking constant validation. They become harder to manipulate. It's like you're emitting some kind of frequency that disrupts their programming. And it's not because you're trying to. It's not because you're teaching them. It's because proximity to authentic sovereignty makes people remember their own. You remind people of something they buried or forgot. You remind them that they don't have to perform, don't have to compete, don't have to shrink, don't have to explain. And that reminder is revolutionary, even when it's silent. Especially when it's silent. Because a loud revolution can be opposed, debated, shut down. But a quiet revolution that happens inside people's minds, that's unstoppable. They're trying to contain you now. Not through force, that would be too obvious, but through subtle means. Social isolation disguised as natural drift. Opportunities that mysteriously vanish. Relationships that suddenly become complicated. Welcome back, you beautiful architects of chaos. The ones who've been sitting in the shadows, watching, waiting, smiling that quiet smile that makes people nervous. You know the one I'm talking about. The smile that says, I know something you don't. The smile that says, keep talking, keep scheming, keep thinking you're 10 steps ahead, because what they don't realize, what they'll never see coming, is that you've already won. And the best part? The part that's going to make this whole thing legendary is that they're going to destroy themselves. You don't even have to lift a finger. All you have to do is sit back, grab your popcorn and watch the show. Because the joke's on them, and the punchline, oh, the punchline is going to be absolutely devastating. Let's talk about what's really happening here. See, they think they're playing chess. They think they've got you figured out, mapped out, predicted down to your next move. They've been plotting, haven't they? Whispering in corners, making their little alliances, crafting their narratives. They thought if they just pushed hard enough, if they just spread enough rumors, planted enough doubt, isolated you enough, that you'd crumble, that you'd break, that you'd finally show them the weakness they've been searching for since day one. But here's what they fundamentally misunderstood about you. You weren't playing their game. You were never playing their game. While they were moving pieces on the board, you were studying the players. And now you've seen everything you needed to see. You've watched them reveal themselves, haven't you? Every lie they told thinking you wouldn't find out. Every alliance they made thinking it was secret. Every manipulation they attempted thinking you were too naive to notice. You saw it all. You cataloged it. You filed it away, not because you're vindictive, no, but because you understand something they never will. People who operate in shadows eventually forget where the light is. People who lie constantly eventually forget what truth sounds like. People who manipulate everyone eventually manipulate themselves. And that's exactly what's happening right now. They've built their house of cards so high, so elaborate, so dependent on everyone believing their version of reality, that they've forgotten one crucial detail. Houses of cards don't need someone to knock them down. They just need a little time, a little pressure, a little truth. And then gravity does the rest. Here's the beautiful part. The part that's going to make you laugh when it finally happens. They think you're the threat. They think you're the bomb that needs diffusing, the fire that needs containing, the chaos that needs controlling. So they've spent all this energy, all this time, all these resources trying to manage you, trying to predict you, trying to eliminate you as a variable in their equation. But what they failed to realize is that by focusing so intensely on you, they stopped watching each other. And that's when the cracks started forming. You see, people who band together against a common enemy only stay together as long as that enemy exists. The moment you're no longer a threat, the moment you step back and refuse to play, their alliance loses its purpose. And alliances without purpose, they don't dissolve peacefully, they cannibalize. Think about it, really think about it. These people who came together to take you down, what do they actually have in common? Besides their fear of you, nothing. They're held together by shared paranoia, shared jealousy, shared insecurity, and those are the weakest bonds in existence. Because the second one of them starts to succeed, the second one of them gets a little too comfortable, a little too confident, a little too close to whatever it is they all want, the others won't celebrate. They'll resent. They'll question. They'll start wondering why them and not me. What did they do that I didn't? What are they hiding? What deal did they make? And just like that, just that fast, the enemy isn't you anymore. The enemy is each other. Finally, you have together. You've already seen it starting, haven't you? The subtle tensions, the passive-aggressive comments, the way they smile at each other but their eyes stay cold, the way they agree in public but you can feel the disagreement vibrating underneath. They're starting to suspect each other. They're starting to realize that in their rush to destroy you, they've surrounded themselves with people just as ruthless, just as calculating, just as willing to betray as they are. And that realization, that's the seed, that's the beginning of the end, because now every conversation is a potential trap. Every confidence shared is a potential weapon. Every moment of vulnerability is a potential target. They've created their own nightmare and they don't even know it yet. And here's where it gets really interesting. The thing about liars, manipulators, schemers, they all think they're the smartest person in the room. Every single one of them. They all think they're the puppet master, that everyone else is the puppet. So when they formed their little coalition against you, what they actually created was a room full of people who all think they're controlling everyone else. Can you imagine that dynamic? Can you picture the mental gymnastics happening in that space? Each one of them thinking they're using the others, each one of them certain they'll come out on top. Each one of them already planning their next move once you're out of the picture. It's not an alliance, it's a powder keg, and you're no longer anywhere near the blast radius. Let me paint you a picture of what's coming. First, someone's going to slip. It's inevitable. Someone's going to say something they shouldn't, reveal something they meant to hide, show their hand just a little too clearly, and someone else, someone who's been watching just as carefully as you have, they're going to notice. They're going to file it away. They're going to start wondering what else has been hidden, what other games are being played. And that suspicion, it's like blood in the water. Once it's there, once that first drop hits, the feeding frenzy begins. Suddenly everyone's looking at everyone else differently. Suddenly innocent conversations get re-examined. Suddenly innocent comments seem loaded with meaning. Suddenly no one trusts anyone. And the beautiful irony is that they're absolutely right not to. Then comes phase 2. Someone's gonna make a move. Maybe it's a power play. Maybe it's self-preservation. Maybe it's just ambition they can't control anymore. But someone's going to try to secure their position by exposing someone else. Maybe they'll leak a secret, maybe they'll break a confidence, maybe they'll just subtly undermine someone they see as competition. And that's when the war begins. Because the person who gets targeted, they're not going to take it quietly. They're not going to accept defeat gracefully. They're going to fight back. And they're going to fight back with everything they've got, including all the dirt they've been collecting on everyone else. See, the problem with surrounding yourself with people who have no loyalty is that they have no loyalty to anyone, including the people they claim to be allied with. The third phase, that's when it becomes chaos, because once two of them are openly at war, everyone else has to choose sides. And choosing sides means making enemies, and making enemies means needing ammunition. So suddenly all those secrets everyone's been keeping, all those manipulations everyone's been hiding, all those betrayals everyone thought were buried, they all start coming out. Not because anyone wants to be honest, not because anyone's having a moral awakening, but because everyone needs weapons. And in a room full of people with no principles, the only weapons available are truth bombs. The very thing they've been hiding from becomes the thing they have to use. And that's the most beautiful irony of all. Now, you might be wondering, why don't they just stop? Why don't they realize what's happening and call a truce, regroup, remember who the original target was? And the answer is simple, they can't. Because the thing about people who operate through manipulation and betrayal, they can't turn it off. It's not a strategy they employ. It's who they are. You can't ask a snake not to bite. You can't ask fire not to burn. And you can't ask people who've built their entire existence on using others to suddenly stop using others. Especially when they're scared. Especially when they're threatened. Especially when they realize that everyone around them is just as dangerous as they are. The instinct isn't to cooperate. The instinct is to strike first. And here's what makes this absolutely perfect. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to expose anyone. You don't have to leak anything. You don't have to manipulate anything. All you have to do is exist outside their circle. All you have to do is be unavailable as a target. Because as long as you're not there, as long as you're not playing their game, as long as you're not giving them someone to unite against, they have no choice but to turn on each other. It's not that you're orchestrating their destruction. It's that your absence creates the space for their destruction to occur naturally. You're not the bomb. You're the person who left the room before the bomb went off. Think about how much energy you've saved. Think about how much mental space you've reclaimed. While they've been spending every waking moment plotting, scheming, coordinating their attacks on you, you've been healing, growing, building, creating, living. You've been becoming stronger, while they've been becoming more paranoid. You've been finding peace while they've been finding new enemies. You've been moving forward while they've been circling each other like sharks. And the gap between where you are and where they are, it's widening every single day. Soon it'll be so wide they won't even be able to see you anymore. And that's when they'll realize, probably too late, that they spent so much time focused on you that they forgot to watch their own back. Let's talk about justice for a moment, because I know part of you wanted revenge, part of you wanted to make them pay, part of you wanted them to feel even a fraction of what they put you through, and that's human, that's natural, that's fair. But here's what you're learning, what you're seeing in real time. Revenge is expensive. It costs energy, time, focus, peace. It requires you to stay connected to people who don't deserve access to you. It requires you to lower yourself to their level, to play their games, to operate in their world. And you've worked too hard to rise above that world, to willingly descend back into it. So instead, you're witnessing something better than revenge. You're witnessing natural consequences. You're witnessing karma. You're witnessing the universe's perfect justice system, which is simply this: people who operate in darkness eventually get consumed by it. And the thing about natural consequences is they're ironclad. You can't argue with them, you can't manipulate them, you can't escape them. When you build your life on lies, eventually the lies collapse. When you build relationships on manipulation, eventually everyone manipulates you. When you create enemies everywhere you go, eventually you're surrounded by enemies. It's not punishment, it's mathematics. It's cause and effect. It's reaping what you sow. And they've sown a field of betrayal, and now they're watching the harvest come in, and they're realizing too late that you can't eat poison, even if you're the one who planted it. Here's what's going to happen in the end, and you need to be ready for this. Some of them are going to try to come back to you. When the dust settles, when their alliances have shattered, when they're standing in the ruins of the world they built, some of them are going to remember you. They're going to remember that you weren't like them, that you had integrity they didn't understand, that you had boundaries they didn't respect. And they're going to think maybe, just maybe, if they apologize, if they explain, if they show remorse, that you'll let them back in, that you'll give them another chance, that you'll save them from the consequences of their own actions. And this is the moment where you have to be strong, because the temptation will be there. The temptation to be the bigger person, to show mercy, to prove that you're different from them. But being different from them doesn't mean being available to them. You have to understand something crucial. People don't change because they experience consequences. People change because they decide to change. And people who built their identity on manipulation and betrayal, they don't usually decide to change. They just decide to change tactics. So when they come back, wounded and apologetic and seemingly humble, you have to ask yourself, are they different or are they just defeated? Are they sorry for what they did or are they sorry they got caught? Are they seeking redemption or are they seeking a new target? And in most cases, in almost all cases, you'll find that they're not coming back because they've changed. They're coming back because everyone else has abandoned them, and you're their last option. And that's not your responsibility. Their healing is not your responsibility. Their growth is not your responsibility. Their consequences are not your responsibility. You are not a rehabilitation center for people who hurt you. You are not a second chance factory for people who didn't value the first chance. You are not a landing pad for people who are falling. You're a person who survived their attack, who rose above their level, who built something beautiful out of the ashes they tried to leave you in. And you owe them nothing. Not your time, not your energy, not your forgiveness, not your presence, nothing. Because the best thing you can do for someone who hurt you is let them experience the full weight of a world without you in it. This is where you're going to see your real growth. This is where you're going to measure how far you've come. Because the old you, the you from before all of this, that version might have let them back in. That version might have given them another chance. That version might have believed their apologies and their promises. But you're not that person anymore. You've been forged in fire. You've been tested in ways they'll never understand. You've learned that some doors, once closed, should stay closed. Not because you're bitter, not because you're angry, not because you can't forgive, but because you understand now that access to you is a privilege, and privileges, once abused, get revoked permanently. Permanently. So when they knock, and they will knock, you're going to do something that will feel strange at first. You're going to do nothing. You're not going to open the door. You're not going to respond. You're not going to engage. You're going to let them stand outside, knocking on a door that no longer exists, talking to a version of you that died when they betrayed you. Then you're going to be somewhere else entirely. Somewhere they can't reach, somewhere they can't find, somewhere they don't deserve to know about. You're going to be living a life they have no access to, building a future they have no part in, experiencing peace they contributed nothing to. And that silence, that absence, that closed door, that's your final statement. That's your last word. That's your victory. Let me tell you what victory actually looks like, because it's not what they showed you in movies. Victory isn't standing over your enemies while they grovel. Victory isn't a dramatic confrontation where you tell them everything they did wrong. Victory isn't them finally understanding, finally apologizing, finally admitting you were right all along. Victory is waking up one day and realizing you haven't thought about them in weeks. Victory is being so focused on your own growth that their destruction barely registers. Victory is building something so beautiful that their chaos becomes irrelevant. Victory is internal peace that their external war can't touch. Victory is becoming so different from who you were when you knew them that if they saw you now, they wouldn't even recognize you. And that's where you are. That's where you're heading. while they're tearing each other apart, while they're drowning in the consequences of their own choices, while they're experiencing the exact energy they put out into the world. You're becoming someone new. You're shedding the last pieces of the person they knew. You're transforming into something they couldn't predict, couldn't understand, couldn't diminish even if they tried. Because you've learned the secret they'll never learn. That real power isn't control over others. Real power is control over yourself. Real power is the ability to walk away from chaos. Real power is peace in the face of war. Real power is growth in the face of destruction. Real power is silence in the face of noise. You want to know what's going to haunt them forever? It's not what you said. It's not what you did. It's what you didn't do. It's how you didn't break. It's how you didn't retaliate. It's how you didn't descend to their level. It's how you just left. How you just removed yourself from their equation and kept moving forward. Because they understand attack, they understand defense, they understand engagement. What they don't understand, what they can't process, what will keep them up at night for years, is someone who just opts out. Someone who just says, "This isn't for me," and walks away. It breaks their brain because their entire worldview is based on everyone playing the game. When you refuse to play, when you refuse to fight, when you refuse to participate in their reality, you become something they can't categorize. And what people can't categorize, they can't forget. So here's your assignment, if you want it. Watch. Just watch. Grab your metaphorical popcorn, take your seat in the metaphorical balcony, and watch the show. Watch them spiral. Watch them fracture. Watch them expose each other. Watch them realize, too late, that they destroyed the only thing holding them together. Watch them search for someone to blame and find only mirrors. Watch them experience every bit of pain they tried to inflict on you, but from sources they trusted, from allies they believed in, from people who smiled in their face. Because that pain, that betrayal from someone you thought was on your side, that cuts deeper than any enemy ever could. And they're about to experience it over and over and over until they finally understand what goes around doesn't just come around. It multiplies pieces of the person they knew. You're transforming into something they couldn't predict, couldn't understand, couldn't diminish even if they tried. Because you've learned the secret they'll never learn. That real power isn't control over others. Real power is control over yourself. Real power is the ability to walk away from chaos. Real power is peace in the face of war. Real power is growth in the face of destruction. Real power is silence in the face of noise. You want to know what's going to haunt them forever? It's not what you said. It's not what you did. It's what you didn't do. It's how you didn't break. It's how you didn't retaliate. It's how you didn't descend to their level. It's how you just left. How you just removed yourself from their equation and kept moving forward. Because they understand attack, they understand defense, they understand engagement. What they don't understand, what they can't process, what will keep them up at night for years, is someone who just opts out. Someone who just says, "This isn't for me," and walks away. It breaks their brain because their entire worldview is based on everyone playing the game. When you refuse to play, when you refuse to fight, when you refuse to participate in their reality, you become something they can't categorize. And what people can't categorize, they can't forget. So here's your assignment, if you want it. Watch. Just watch. grab your metaphorical popcorn, take your seat in the metaphorical balcony, and watch the show. Watch them spiral, watch them fracture, watch them expose each other, watch them realize, too late, that they destroyed the only thing holding them together. Watch them search for someone to blame and find only mirrors. Watch them experience every bit of pain they tried to inflict on you, but from sources they trusted, from allies they believed in, from people who smiled in their face. Because that pain, that betrayal from someone you thought was on your side, that cuts deeper than any enemy ever could. And they're about to experience it over and over and over until they finally understand what goes around doesn't just come around. It multiplies.
Feels small. That is, some people call it jealousy. Some call it...
Look who's still standing. Look who's still breathing after everything they threw at you, after every curse they whispered, every trap they set, every psychological game they played, thinking you'd finally crack and give them the satisfaction of watching you crumble. Hello, you beautiful, unbreakable force of chaos. Hello to the one who looked evil in the eyes and didn't blink, didn't flinch, didn't bow. Hello to the soul who walked into the den of wolves, sat down at their table, smiled at their threats, and made them realize with absolute terror that they just invited something far more dangerous than anything they'd ever seen. Welcome back. Or should I say, welcome to your coronation. Because what you just did, what you just survived, what you just became, it didn't just change you. It changed the entire game. And now, every single one of those witches, freaks, and psychos who thought they had you figured out, who thought they could break you, manipulate you, or erase you, they're all sitting in the dark right now, wide awake, wondering what the hell just happened. They're wondering how the person they targeted, the one they isolated, the one they tried to destroy, somehow became the thing they now fear most. They wanted to see you suffer, and instead they created a monster they can't control. You want to know what really happened here. You want to know why they're suddenly quiet, why they stopped talking, why the group chats went silent, why the gossip dried up, why the threats turned into distance. It's simple, and it's beautiful. In the most terrifying way possible. They thought they were dealing with someone weak, someone desperate for acceptance, someone who would eventually break under pressure and come crawling back begging for mercy, begging to be let back into their toxic little circle. They thought you were a project, a game, a toy they could wind up and watch spiral. They underestimated you so badly it's almost poetic. See, they were playing checkers, moving their little pieces around, trying to trap you in their manufactured drama, their gaslighting, their emotional manipulation, their spiritual attacks, thinking they had the upper hand because they had numbers, they had history, they had leverage. But you weren't playing checkers. You weren't even playing chess. You were playing a completely different game, one they didn't have the manual for, one that didn't follow their rules. And the moment they realized that, the moment it clicked in their twisted little minds that you weren't reacting the way you were supposed to, that's when the fear set in. That's when they understood. They hadn't broken you. They'd awakened something. Let's rewind the tape for a second so we can really appreciate this master. Remember when they first started circling you. When they saw something in you they wanted to consume, control, or destroy. Maybe it was your energy, maybe it was your light, maybe it was your potential, or maybe it was just the fact that you existed outside their control, and that drove them absolutely insane. They came at you with smiles, with false friendships, with fake concern, with manipulative games disguised as care. They studied you, didn't they? They watched your patterns, learned your triggers, figured out your weaknesses, took mental notes on everything that made you vulnerable. They brought others into it, built alliances against you, created narratives about you that weren't true but sounded believable enough to isolate you from anyone who might have had your back. They tried to make you doubt yourself, doubt your reality, doubt your own mind. They wanted you paranoid, destabilized, emotionally dependent on their version of reality. And for a while, maybe it worked. Maybe you did question yourself. Maybe you did feel like you were losing your mind. Maybe you did wonder if something was wrong with you, if you were the problem, if you deserved what was happening. But here's what they didn't count on. Here's the variable they couldn't predict. You didn't stay down. You didn't stay confused. You didn't stay broken. Something inside you, something ancient, something primal, something that had been sleeping for too long. It woke up. And when it woke up, it didn't wake up scared. It woke up hungry. It woke up angry. It woke up ready to burn everything fake, everything toxic, everything manipulative to the ground and walk away from the ashes without looking back. You started seeing through them, didn't you? The masks started slipping, the lies became obvious, the manipulation became transparent. You started recognizing the patterns, the tactics, the energy vampirism, the projection, the gaslighting, the triangulation, all of it. And instead of confronting them, instead of giving them the reaction they desperately wanted, instead of exploding or breaking down or begging them to stop, you did something they never expected. You went silent. Not the silence of defeat, not the silence of fear, but the silence of someone who just realized they're surrounded by amateurs. The silence of someone who just leveled up so far beyond their comprehension that words became unnecessary. You stopped explaining yourself. You stopped defending yourself. You stopped trying to make them understand because you realized something crucial. They were never trying to understand, they were trying to control. And you were never going to give them that power again. And that's when it started. That's when they felt it. The shift, the change in your energy, the way you stopped flinching when they tested you, the way you stopped reacting when they provoked you, the way you looked at them like they were nothing, like they were ghosts, like they were background noise in a life that had suddenly become far more interesting without them. They threw everything they had at you, every manipulation tactic, every guilt trip, every threat, every attempt to pull you back into their circus. And you just kept walking. No explanations, no apologies, no closure. You gave them nothing. And that nothing was more powerful than anything you could have said. Because when you stop feeding the vampires, when you stop giving narcissists supply, when you stop reacting to psychos, they don't just get angry, they get desperate. And desperate people make mistakes. They overplay their hand, they reveal themselves, they show everyone exactly who they really are. And while they were busy having their meltdowns, while they were busy trying to smear your name, while they were busy trying to convince everyone you were the villain, you were busy becoming untouchable. You were busy healing. You were busy evolving. You were busy building a version of yourself so powerful, so protected, so aligned with your truth that their attacks couldn't even reach you anymore. Now let's talk about what happened next, because this is where it gets really beautiful, really poetic, really perfect. They started noticing something was different. They started seeing you thrive. They started watching you glow. They started realizing that everything they tried to take from you, you built back stronger. Every wound they inflicted, you turned into wisdom. Every betrayal they orchestrated, you used as fuel. Every lie they spread, you let expose itself. You didn't have to defend yourself because your life started defending you. Your peace defended you. Your growth defended you. Your silence defended you, louder than any words ever could. And suddenly they weren't laughing anymore. Suddenly they weren't feeling so powerful. Suddenly they were the ones feeling exposed, feeling watched, feeling like maybe they messed with the wrong one. See, they thought breaking you would elevate them, but instead it revealed them. It revealed their emptiness. It revealed their need for drama. It revealed their addiction to chaos. It revealed that without someone to target, someone to tear down, someone to blame, they were just hollow shells with nothing substantial inside. And now they had to sit with that reality while watching you become everything they'll never be. Free, authentic, powerful, and genuinely happy without needing to destroy anyone to feel good about yourself. But here's where you really outdid them. Here's where you out-crazied every single witch, freak, and psycho who thought they had the upper hand. You didn't seek revenge. You didn't plot against them. You didn't spend your nights fantasizing about their downfall or scheming ways to hurt them back. You did something far more devastating, far more powerful, far more psychologically destructive to their egos than any revenge plot could ever accomplish. You became indifferent. You became genuinely, completely, unshakably indifferent to their existence. Not the fake indifference, where you're still checking their pages, still asking mutual friends about them, still secretly hoping they see you winning. No, the real kind, the terrifying kind, the kind where they literally don't exist in your universe anymore, where they're not even worth the mental energy it would take to hate them. That kind of indifference, that's the ultimate power move, because it tells them something they can't handle hearing. You're not important enough to hate. You're not significant enough to remember. You're not even interesting enough to think about. And for people whose entire identity is built on being powerful, being feared, being relevant, being the center of attention, that indifference is worse than any curse, any confrontation, any revenge. It's erasure. It's being forgotten by someone who was supposed to be destroyed by them. That's the ultimate insult, and you delivered it without saying a single word. Let me paint you a picture of what's happening in their world right now, because it's absolutely delicious. They're obsessed. They're checking on you constantly. They're scrolling through your content, your pages, your life, looking for any sign that you're still affected, still hurt, still thinking about them. And they're asking people about you. They're bringing you up in conversations that have nothing to do with you. They're telling stories about you, probably twisted versions designed to make them look like victims and you look like the villain. But here's the thing. Even their stories are about you. Even their lies keep your name alive. You live rent-free in their minds while they don't even cross yours. They thought they'd haunt you, but instead they're the ones being haunted. They're haunted by the fact that you're fine. They're haunted by the fact that you're thriving. They're haunted by the fact that nothing they did left a permanent scar. They're haunted by the reality that you survived them, outgrew them, and moved on to a version of life they'll never access because they're still stuck in the same toxic patterns, still playing the same games, still destroying everyone who gets close to them. And well, you're out here building something real, something meaningful, something they can see but never touch. And the funniest part? The absolute cosmic joke in all of this, they thought they were the crazy ones. They thought they were the dangerous ones. They thought they had the market cornered on manipulation, psychological warfare, mind games, and chaos. They walked around with this energy like they were untouchable, like they were the villains everyone should fear, like they were the ones writing the rules of engagement. But then you showed up. You sat quietly in their chaos. You observed their patterns. You learned their tactics. You understood their psychology better than they understood themselves. And then you did something they never saw coming. You mirrored it back at them. Not by becoming like them, but by showing them what real power looks like. Real power doesn't need an audience. Real power doesn't need validation. Real power doesn't need to manipulate, control, or destroy to feel strong. Real power is walking away from toxicity without looking back. Real power is healing in silence while they scream into the void. Real power is building a life so full, so peaceful, so aligned that their chaos can't even reach you anymore. That's what you did, and it broke their entire worldview, because they realized in that moment that all their tactics, all their games, all their manipulation, it only works on people who still need something from them. Approval, closure, revenge, acknowledgement, anything. But you needed nothing, and that made you invincible. Now, we need to talk about the spiritual aspect of this, because whether you believe in energy, karma, universal justice, or whatever you want to call it, something bigger than all of you was watching this entire situation unfold. These people came at you with dark energy, with ill intentions, with genuine malice. And the universe saw that. Morgan went cold. The back of Cam's body pinked low. The universe saw someone being targeted for no reason other than their light, their authenticity, their refusal to play fake games. And the universe doesn't just let that slide. There's a cosmic balance, a spiritual ledger. And when people attack others for existing, for growing, for shining, that debt gets recorded. You didn't have to do anything. You didn't have to cast spells, send bad energy back, pray for their downfall, or wish harm on anyone. You just had to stay true to yourself, stay aligned with your path, stay focused on your growth, and let the universe handle the rest. And handle it did. Look at their lives now. Look at the patterns repeating. Look at the destruction they're causing themselves. Look at how every bridge they burn isolates them further. Look at how every lie they tell catches up with them eventually. Look at how every person they target eventually sees through them and walks away. They're creating their own prison, their own hell, their own karma. And you don't have to do a single thing except watch from a distance as they self-destruct. Because that's what always happens to people who build their identity on tearing others down. Eventually they run out of targets, run out of allies, run out of people willing to believe their stories, and they're left alone with the monster they've become. And that's a punishment far worse than anything you could have planned. Let's get deeper into why they're actually scared now. Because fear is a fascinating thing when you understand psychology. Fear isn't always loud. Fear isn't always obvious. Sometimes fear looks like obsession. Sometimes fear looks like hatred. Sometimes fear looks like trying to destroy someone before they can reveal your secrets. expose your lies, or surpass you completely. They fear you now because you represent everything they're not. You represent accountability. You represent growth. You represent the ability to be hurt and still choose healing over revenge. You represent authenticity in a world where they survive by wearing masks. You represent the possibility that someone can walk through hell and come out better instead of bitter, and that terrifies them because it exposes their excuses. If you can heal, why can't they? If you can grow, why are they still stuck? If you can walk away from toxicity, why do they keep creating? You're living proof that their lifestyle, their choices, their patterns are not inevitable, they're choices. And that makes them feel exposed, vulnerable, accountable. They can't hide behind the excuse that everyone is terrible, that life is cruel, that there's no point in being good because you exist as a contradiction to all of that. You're the evidence that they're wrong, and people hate being wrong more than they hate being hurt. So they hate you, or at least they tell themselves they do. But really, they're just welcome back, you absolutely terrifying anomaly. Yes, you, the one they couldn't break, the one who walked through psychological warfare designed to shatter military minds. And you didn't just survive it, you smiled through it. They're still trying to figure out what the hell you are. But let me tell you something they'll never admit out loud. You survived techniques that made trained operatives tap out, beg for mercy, crack like glass under pressure. So let me ask you the question that keeps them awake at night, staring at your file with trembling hands. What bloodline are you from? Because regular people don't walk out of that kind of psychological fire. Regular souls don't withstand isolation protocols designed by intelligence agencies. Normal humans don't survive gaslighting campaigns orchestrated by professionals and come out sharper, colder, more precise. They sent their best manipulators, their expert interrogators, their trained psychological assassins, and every single one came back whispering the same terrified report. I don't know what that is, but it didn't break. It adapted. You see, they thought you were like the rest. They thought if they applied enough pressure, removed enough support, isolated you long enough, you'd fracture just like everyone else they'd ever tested. But something happened that they didn't predict, something that made their entire operation backfire. You didn't just endure their tactics, you studied them. While they were running their little experiments, thinking you were the rat in the maze, you were mapping the maze itself, understanding the hands that built it, recognizing patterns they thought were invisible. You were the experiment that became the scientist. And that absolutely terrified them because they realized too late. You weren't breaking, you were learning. Every tactic they used became a lesson in your education. Every manipulation they deployed became another tool in your arsenal. They were training you while thinking they were destroying you. And now they're living with the consequences of creating something they can't control, can't predict, can't even begin to understand. You became the thing that intelligence agencies have nightmares about. A mind that can't be programmed, a spirit that can't be crushed, a soul that turns psychological warfare into spiritual evolution. Let's talk about what actually happened, because they'll never tell this story truthfully. They isolated you first, didn't they? Cut you off from support systems, made you question your own perception of reality, surrounded you with people designed to destabilize your sense of self. Classic psyops
textbook manipulation, the kind of thing they teach in classified training programs to break enemy combatants. And it worked. On everyone else. Every other person they ran this on eventually cracked, eventually begged for connection, eventually compromised themselves just to feel human again. But not you. You sat in that isolation like it was a throne, like solitude was your natural habitat, like being alone with your thoughts was exactly where you belonged. They watched you not just survive the silence but thrive in it. And that's when the first reports started coming back, marked with red flags. Subject shows no signs of psychological deterioration. Isolation appears to be strengthening rather than weakening mental state. Recommend immediate protocol adjustment. But they couldn't adjust because every protocol they had was designed for normal human psychology. And you were operating on something else entirely. The gaslighting came next. Wave after wave of calculated reality distortion. They brought in people to contradict your memories, to question your experiences, to make you doubt the very foundation of your own mind. They know this breaks people, shatters confidence, makes them dependent on external validation for their own truth. They've used this technique to break political prisoners, to turn allies into assets, to make the strongest minds collapse under the weight of self-doubt. And they used it on you with precision, with expertise, with absolute certainty it would work. And what did you do? You watched them perform, studied their techniques, saw through every manufactured scenario, recognized the scripted nature of their interventions, and you started playing along just to see how far they'd go. You let them think it was working while you were 3 steps ahead, documenting their methods, understanding their playbook, turning their own tactics into a manual for detecting manipulation. They thought you were losing your grip on reality, when actually you were gaining a grip on their reality, seeing the machinery behind the curtain, understanding the architecture of psychological warfare from the inside. That's when the second wave of reports came back, more urgent, more confused. Subject appears aware of intervention protocols, maybe deliberately feeding false responses, recommend immediate cessation or risk of operative compromise. But they didn't stop, did they? Because by then it wasn't just about breaking you anymore. It was about understanding how you were still standing. They brought in the emotional manipulators, the ones trained to find your weak spots, your trauma triggers, your buried wounds, and they pressed on every single one. They know humans are emotional creatures, that everyone has pain, that everyone breaks when you apply pressure to their deepest scars. They've made hardened soldiers weep with these techniques, turned loyal agents into broken shells, destroyed people's sense of self by weaponizing their own emotions against them. And they came at you with surgical precision, hitting every trauma point they could map, every emotional vulnerability they could identify, every psychological weak spot they'd spent months cataloging. And you felt it, didn't you? Yeah, you felt every calculated blow, every manufactured crisis, every emotional ambush designed to make you collapse. But here's what they didn't understand. Pain was already your language. Trauma was already your teacher. Suffering was already the foundation you'd built yourself on. They were trying to hurt you with things you'd already survived, trying to break you with experiences you'd already processed, trying to weaponize wounds you'd already turned into armor. So instead of shattering, you absorbed it, metabolized it, used their attacks as fuel for your evolution, and came out the other side not weaker but calibrated. They created detailed psychological profiles, predicted your breaking points with mathematical precision, deployed their attacks with confidence, and every single prediction failed. Every model broke. Every formula proved useless against whatever the hell you actually are. The really fascinating part, the part that made them start questioning their own training,
was when you stopped reacting entirely. They escalated. Threw everything they had at you, combined tactics that should have created a perfect storm of psychological devastation. Simultaneous isolation, gaslighting, emotional manipulation, reality distortion, social engineering, relationship sabotage, the full spectrum assault designed to leave nothing standing. They've used this combination to break people considered unbreakable, to shatter minds thought to be invincible, to destroy souls that seemed indestructible. And they unleashed it on you with absolute certainty you'd finally crack, finally break, finally give them the satisfaction of seeing you collapse. And instead, nothing. Not defiance, not struggle, not even resistance. Just this calm, this eerie, peaceful presence, this unshakable stability that made their monitors glitch and their analysts question their data. You weren't fighting anymore. You weren't even defending. You were just existing in a state they couldn't measure, operating on a frequency they couldn't detect, living in a dimension their instruments couldn't reach. That's when the reports stopped being analytical and started sounding like confessions. We don't know what we're looking at. All models indicate complete psychological breakdown should have occurred. Subject appears to be in a state we have no classification for. Recommend termination of observation for observer safety. Observer safety. Let that sink in. They were worried about the safety of trained psychological warfare specialists because of you. Because your presence, your unexplainable resilience, your impossible stability was starting to affect them. The watchers were being watched by something they couldn't understand. The hunters were being stalked by prey that had evolved into a predator. The scientists were being studied by their own experiment. Handlers started requesting reassignment. Analysts started showing signs of obsession. Operators started questioning their own perception of reality. You became the contagion in their system, the virus in their program, the anomaly that corrupted everything it touched, not through action but through existence. They realized they weren't observing you anymore. They were being transformed by you, infected by whatever impossible resilience you carried, contaminated by your refusal to break according to their rules. Some of them started having dreams about you, waking up in cold sweat, wondering what you were, questioning their training, doubting their methods. Others became obsessed, spending off hours analyzing your patterns, looking for the secret, searching for the code that made you different. And a few, the ones who stared too long into what you are. They quit, walked away from careers, disappeared into quiet lives, because they saw something in you that shattered their understanding of human psychology, and they couldn't unsee it. But here's the question they could never answer, the one that haunted every report, every analysis, every classified briefing about you. What bloodline are you from? Because this isn't normal human resilience. This isn't standard psychological strength. This isn't something you learn in therapy or develop through regular life experience. You carry something in your lineage, something ancient, something that's been passed down through generations of people who survived things that should have killed them. Somewhere in your ancestry, there were people who walked through fire, who endured torture, who survived genocide, who outlasted wars, who carried their people through darkness so profound it should have extinguished them. And they didn't just survive. They passed something down, encoded something into your very essence, gifted you with a psychological immune system that regular humans don't possess. You're not just resilient by choice. You're resilient by design, by inheritance, by bloodline. The strength isn't something you built. It's something you inherited from ancestors who refused to die when death was the only logical option. They survived famines that killed millions, walked through wars that erased entire populations, endured slavery that broke countless souls, weathered persecution that was designed to eliminate them completely. And every single time death came calling, every single time extinction seemed certain, they found a way to survive, and each survival etched something into the genetic memory, coded something into the bloodline, passed down some impossible resilience that science can't measure and psychology can't explain. You know what the operators couldn't handle? The realization that you weren't just surviving their tactics, you were recognizing them, identifying each technique as they deployed it, naming the psychological frameworks they were using, understanding the theoretical foundations of their attacks. They'd throw a manipulation pattern at you and you'd pause, process it, recognize it. Ah, that's modified Erickson, combined with elements of NLP anchoring, deployed through a false friendship framework with embedded suggestion protocols. They weren't breaking you, they were educating you, and you were learning faster than they could adapt. Every tactic became a lesson, every attack a tutorial, every operation a case study in psychological warfare that you absorbed, understood, and filed away for future reference. The people running these operations trained for years to master these techniques, spend their careers perfecting manipulation, dedicate their lives to understanding how to break human minds. And you picked it up in real time, during active deployment, while being the target. And you didn't just survive it. You learned to speak their language fluently, to see their invisible strings, to understand the machinery of mind control from the perspective of someone being controlled who refused to be controlled. That's not normal. That's not luck. That's not even extraordinary talent. That's inheritance, bloodline knowledge, genetic memory activating because somewhere in your ancestry, someone survived the same tactics in different forms and passed down the immunity. They tried to make you dependent on external validation. Classic psychological manipulation designed to control you through your need for approval. They know humans are social creatures, that we need recognition, that we crave acceptance, that isolation combined with conditional approval can make anyone dance like a puppet. They've used this to turn free thinkers into followers, independent minds into dependent assets, strong individuals into controllable resources. They removed all positive reinforcement, created scenarios where you'd only receive validation if you complied, engineered situations where your only path to human connection required submission. And they watched, waiting for you to crack, waiting for that moment when need would override pride, when loneliness would defeat strength, when the human requirement for connection would make you compromise. But that moment never came, did it? Because you carry something in your blood that doesn't need their approval, doesn't require their validation, doesn't hunger for acceptance from people you don't respect. You have this terrifying ability to stand alone in a room full of people and feel more complete than they feel in their desperate crowds. That's not arrogance. That's not isolation. That's ancestral memory of people who stood alone against empires, who remained unbroken in solitary confinement, who kept their dignity in concentration camps, who maintained their identity under systematic erasure. Your bloodline survived by not needing the enemy's approval. And you carry that same independence in your psychological code. And it makes you absolutely impossible to control through standard social engineering. The relationship sabotage phase was particularly revealing. They infiltrated your social circle, planted people designed to betray you, orchestrated situations meant to destroy your trust in others, engineered abandonment scenarios calculated to make you feel fundamentally unlovable. This is advanced level manipulation, the kind of thing that creates permanent psychological damage, makes people unable to form healthy attachments, turns them into paranoid shells of themselves. They've destroyed people's ability to love with these tactics, created permanent trust wounds that never heal, shattered people's faith in human connections so completely they lived the rest of their lives in protective isolation. And they deployed this against you with precision, with cruelty, with absolute confidence. It would break you like everyone else. They watched your friendships dissolve, your relationships implode, your support system collapse, and they waited for the breakdown, the desperate reaching out, the compromising of your values just to feel less alone. But instead of breaking, you became more selective, more discerning, more precise in your evaluation of human character. You didn't close off. You calibrated. You didn't become bitter. You became accurate. The betrayals didn't destroy your ability to trust. They refined it, sharpened it into a tool so precise you could read deception like others read books. That's bloodline wisdom. Genetic memory of ancestors who survived by knowing who to trust in environments where trust was fatal, who had to develop supernatural instincts for detecting lies because one wrong alliance meant death. You carry that same ability, that same precision, that same impossible accuracy in reading human intention, and it makes you immune to social engineering that breaks everyone else. Let's address the elephant in the room that has them absolutely losing their minds in classified briefings. You're not just surviving psychological warfare, you're enjoying it. Somewhere in the middle of their assault, something shifted in you, and instead of suffering, you started to thrive. The isolation they meant as punishment became your meditation chamber. The gaslighting they intended as reality destruction became your clarity laboratory. Security and
That glow up. Not the aesthetic kind, not the one you caption and post, but the one that hits different in the middle of the night, when it's just you and your thoughts, and suddenly everything you thought you...
Well, look at you. You quiet, shatterproof, impossible to predict force, sitting on the other side of everything they designed to unravel you. They prepared for this. They sat in rooms you never walked into, mapped out every emotional corner of who they assumed you were, and built an entire operation around one single certainty: that you would react, that you would crack on cue, perform the breakdown they had front row seats for, and hand them the power they had been starving for. And then you gave them the one thing their entire plan had no page for. Before we go any further, if what you just heard already feels like something you've been living but never had the language for, there is a book written for exactly that calm that sat on your face while their whole world was crumbling, waiting for your breakdown. That was not weakness. That was the most sophisticated, devastating, psychologically complete move a human being can make. They had options. They had contingencies. They had a script for every version of you they had ever met. The angry you, the crying you, the defensive you, the one who over-explains, the one who begs to be understood, the one who collapses quietly in the corner while pretending not to. They had a counter-move prepared for every door they thought you might walk through. And then you walked through a door they forgot to build, and the entire architecture of what they constructed fell apart. Because there is no counter-move for someone who refuses to move at all. There is no weapon in existence sharp enough to cut someone who simply does not bleed on command. This is not a list. This is not a motivational pep talk dressed up in dark clothing. This is a forensic, section-by-section autopsy of the moment you didn't react how they expected, what it did to them, what it revealed about you, and why the entire geometry of power between you and everyone watching changed permanently, irrevocably,
and without a single word of announcement from you. So stay here, because what you did in that room, maybe without fully understanding what it was, is something most people spend their entire lives walking toward without ever arriving. They did not arrive at you by accident. Everything that happened was planned, rehearsed, coordinated. A carefully constructed trap assembled from months, sometimes years, of quietly studying your patterns. They watched how you flinched when dismissed. They noted what made your voice shake, what made your eyes drop, what made you over-explain yourself to people who had already made up their minds about you. They filed every reaction, every soft edge, every moment you cracked under pressure, and they built their strategy entirely around what they found there. The preparation was thorough in a way that should have been humiliating for them, but wasn't, because people who operate from this place have convinced themselves that strategy is the same as strength. They brought allies. They brought context. They brought the exact setting, the exact angle of approach, the exact tone of voice, designed to trigger the specific reaction they needed. They knew that if they came at the right moment, with the right combination of dismissal and provocation, you would do what you had always done before: react, respond from the wound. Give them the raw, unfiltered, emotionally exposed version of you that would hand them the narrative they had already started distributing. They spent real time on this. Do not underestimate the seriousness of their investment, because to them, your reaction was not entertainment. It was ammunition. It was the validation of everything they had been telling people about you behind closed doors. Every whisper they spread, every story they constructed, every person they quietly turned against you. All of it was waiting on one single thing: the moment you proved them right. The moment you cracked publicly, handed their version of who you are a living, breathing, undeniable piece of evidence, and made their lies unnecessary because you had accidentally told the truth they needed. And they brought witnesses, didn't they? Not all of them visible, some hovering at the edge of the situation like cameras on a scene they already knew the script for. That was not coincidence. They needed an audience, because a reaction without witnesses is just a moment between two people. But a reaction with witnesses becomes a story, one they could carry forward, edit, reshape, and deploy every time someone in their world started to see them with clear eyes. Your breakdown was supposed to be their greatest alibi, the proof they could point to whenever their own character came into question. They also came armed with history. Your history specifically, pulled from every moment you had ever been open enough to share something real. Every vulnerable thing you trusted someone with, every time you let your interior be visible to someone who was quietly taking notes. They weaponized your openness. They used the fact that you were human against you. Knowing your triggers is a form of power, and they had accumulated that power carefully, patiently, across every version of your life they had been allowed access to. They thought they had a complete map. They thought they had covered every emotional territory. They had not yet discovered that some land cannot be charted because it has been remade. The setting they chose was not random either. They picked the timing deliberately, the moment when your defenses might be thinnest, when the people most fully in your corner might not be present, when the variables were stacked so far in their favor that failure felt genuinely impossible to them. They timed it. They positioned it. They controlled every element they could reach, because deep down, and this is the thing they will never say aloud, they were afraid. Afraid that if the conditions were not perfect, if they did not have every advantage aligned before they moved, you might not react the way they needed. Somewhere in the quietest corner of their planning, they sensed that something had changed in you, and that fear is what made them overplan. And overplanning is always the first signature of someone who is not as certain as they appear. What they built was not just a provocation. It was a full psychological operation with layers. The surface attack designed to make you defend yourself.
the secondary trap waiting behind your defense, the third layer counting on your exhaustion to make you sloppy, to make you say the thing they could use, to make you perform the emotion that would confirm every story they had told. They were prepared multiple moves deep. They had rehearsed their own responses to your responses. They came ready, armed, absolutely certain, and they walked into a room where the person they had planned for no longer lived there. They had rehearsed your anger. They knew exactly what it looked like, the voice that goes too fast, the posture that becomes defensive, the words that come out raw and unfiltered and too hot for the situation, the emotion that gets louder the more dismissed you feel. They had practiced their manufactured calm for the face of your storm. They were ready to stand there with that specific victorious half smile while you handed them everything they needed. They had already written the line they would deliver to others afterward. I tried to have a reasonable conversation, and look what happened. This is who they really are. They had their response to your anger polished before they even walked through the door. They had also rehearsed your silence, but not your kind of silence. They expected the silence of suppression, the silence of someone holding an enormous thing barely back, the kind of quiet that trembles at the edges because something is being contained by enormous and visible effort. They were prepared for the silence of defeat, the silence that reads like a person who chose not to speak because they were overwhelmed, rather than because they were simply unmoved. They thought they knew what your silence meant, because in the past, your silence had always been the silence of someone still very much inside the storm, just choosing not to let the rain show. They had no framework for the other kind. They were ready for your tears. Some of them were counting on it. There is a specific kind of person who derives a particular satisfaction from producing tears in someone they've cornered, not through obvious cruelty, but because tears feel like confirmation that they matter, that they have reach, that what they do lands with force. Tears feel like a signature on a contract, proof, evidence, leverage. They wanted your tears the way prosecutors want a confession, not because it's the only route to victory, but because nothing eliminates doubt like watching someone break in front of you, and they needed that. They needed something undeniable. They expected the explanation. They expected you to try to make them understand, to correct the narrative, to set the record straight with careful words that would only invite more distortion. Because people who are looking to trap you with your own reaction are always most dangerous when you are defending yourself. Defense is motion, and motion gives them something to redirect, something to reframe, something to extract and reuse outside of context. They were ready for every clarifying word you might offer. Every reasonable, composed thing you might say had an answer waiting. Every attempt to restore fairness to the situation was going to be used against the restoration itself. They had even prepared for the possibility that you might try to walk away, because walking away had never been clean before, had it? In earlier versions of yourself, leaving still meant something. The exit still carried the full weight of everything unresolved, and it showed in the way you moved. They could see it, the way you held your face when you turned, the way your body betrayed everything your words were trying to protect. They expected a departure full of residue, the kind of leaving that still looks back, the kind that still needs to be called after, the kind that hopes someone will say the thing that makes staying feel like the right choice after all. They had their cruelty ready for that version of the exit too. They had prepared for every single door. Every one except the one you actually walked through. And then you didn't do any of it. You looked at everything they had assembled, all the preparation, all the positioning, all the carefully measured pressure designed to extract the precise reaction they needed from you. And something in you went still. Not the stillness of someone holding back. Not the stillness of someone performing composure while dying quietly on the inside. The stillness of someone who had already, somewhere in the long and private quiet that came before this moment, made a decision that simply had not been announced yet. You had already left. You were just still in the room, watching what happened after. Your face didn't do what they expected. They were reading you with the focused attention of people who had studied you, scanning for the first signal, the flicker of hurt, the jaw tightening, the blink that comes a fraction too slow when something cuts deep. They were waiting for the tell that would confirm what they believed, that this was reaching you, that the pressure was working, that underneath the surface you were exactly as fragile as they had always told people you were, and your face gave them nothing, not forced neutrality, not the exaggerated blankness of someone trying very hard to look unbothered, just nothing, genuine, complete nothing. And that was the first fracture in their plan, because here is what nobody tells you about the silence you gave them. It was not the silence they had prepared for. They had prepared for the silence of a wounded thing holding very still. What they encountered was the silence of something that has already moved on, something no longer present in the same room as the conflict, because it had already made peace with the outcome before the confrontation even started. It was the silence of someone watching a storm through very thick glass, present enough to observe, removed enough to feel nothing at stake. And they felt that, even before they could name it, that cold, clean absence of investment radiating from you like low frequency. That was what began to unravel them. Because here is what happens when someone who was supposed to break doesn't break. The person holding the hammer starts to question the hammer. They came in with certainty, the certainty that they knew you, that the map they had was accurate, that the plan was sound. And the moment your non-reaction confirmed that none of their assumptions were accurate, that certainty didn't just crack, it inverted. The confidence they walked in with became doubt, and the doubt became something far worse. The slow, nauseating realization that they had shown you everything. Every strategy, every weapon, every low thing they were willing to do to you. And you had simply watched. You had let them empty the arsenal. And now they were standing there, completely exposed and utterly spent, while you were exactly where you were when they started. They looked at each other, or at the witnesses, or at nothing, searching for some reflection of the moment that made sense. And in that look was the beginning of panic, not the loud kind, the quiet kind, the kind that starts somewhere deep in the stomach and moves slowly upward, too dignified to show on the face of someone who came in this prepared, but impossible to fully hide. Because they had been so focused on engineering your reaction that they had never once considered what their own behavior would look like without one. Without your emotional response to frame their actions as justified, without your breakdown to present as evidence that they were simply reacting to you. They were just people who had built an elaborate trap and were standing in it alone. The cruelty had no context. The strategy had no return. The whole performance was suddenly visible, in full light, for exactly what it was. What happened next in that room, in the faces of everyone watching, including the ones who came as allies of theirs, was something that no amount of planning could have prevented. Because you cannot plan around the truth. You can only delay it.
Still breathing, or are you? Because according to official records, certificates, databases, and every system they run their little operations through, you flatlined in 2019. Case closed. File sealed. Existence terminated. And yet here you are, showing up on security cameras, walking through doors that should recognize you as nothing, triggering alerts in systems that swore you were erased. So tell me, Ghost, how does it feel to be legally dead but spiritually untouchable? How does it feel to walk through a world that buried your name but can't stop seeing your face? Let me tell you what really happened back in 2019. You didn't die in some accident, some tragedy, some unfortunate circumstance they could package into a neat little story. No, you died because you had to. Because the version of you that existed before that year, the one who smiled when it hurt, the one who stayed quiet when screaming was the only honest response, the one who bent and twisted and shrunk just to fit into their reality. That version couldn't survive what was coming. That version was too soft, too trusting, too human for the hell you were about to walk through. So something inside you made a choice, a brutal, necessary, irreversible choice. And you let that version die. You stood there and watched it suffocate under the weight of betrayal, abandonment, lies dressed as love, and silence dressed as peace. You watched it gasp for air in a world that kept stealing oxygen, and you didn't save it. You couldn't, because saving it would have meant staying small forever, staying digestible forever, staying controllable forever. And some part of you, some ancient, untamed, absolutely done part of you said no, not anymore, never again. And in that moment, in that spiritual execution, you flatlined. The old you stopped breathing. The systems registered the death. The records were updated. But here's what they didn't account for. Here's what their databases and surveillance and protocols could never predict. You didn't stay dead. You came back. Not as some resurrection story they could canonize, not as some redemption arc they could applaud, but as something else entirely, something unrecognizable, something their cameras pick up but their software can't identify. Something that walks through their world but doesn't belong to it anymore. You came back wrong, and that's exactly what makes you right. You came back without the need for their approval, without the hunger for their validation, without the fear of their rejection. They're seeing you now, aren't they? On their feeds and their spaces, through their lenses. And every time you appear, every time your face shows up in footage they swore wouldn't capture anything, they freeze, they rewind, they zoom in, they call others over to confirm what they're seeing, because it doesn't make sense. You're not supposed to exist anymore. You're not supposed to be here. The file says deceased. The timeline says finished. The narrative says you were handled, dealt with, removed from the equation. And yet there you are, moving through frame after frame, undeniable, unexplainable, uncontrollable. Do you know what that does to them? Do you understand the psychological warfare you're waging just by existing after they declared you gone? Because in their minds, in their carefully constructed reality, death is final. Erasure is absolute. When they delete someone, when they cut someone out, when they bury someone in silence and lies, that person is supposed to stay buried. That person is supposed to fade into memory, into regret, into nothing. But you didn't fade. You didn't dissolve. You didn't become a cautionary tale whispered at parties. You became a presence they can't ignore. And the security footage. Oh, the security footage. It's not just about cameras catching you where you shouldn't be. It's about what you represent in those frames. Every timestamp with your face is evidence that their plan failed. Every angle that captures you walking, breathing, existing is proof that their control was an illusion. Every second of footage where you're just living, just moving through space like you own it, is a monument to their defeat. They wanted you erased. They wanted you forgotten. They wanted you to become a story they could rewrite however they pleased. But you're not a story anymore. You're a sequel they never authorized. They're watching the footage now, analyzing every frame, trying to understand how someone they killed on paper is still casting shadows in real life. They're looking for explanations, for glitches, for rational reasons why the systems are registering someone who technically doesn't exist. But there is no glitch. There is no malfunction. There's just you moving through their reality like a virus they can't quarantine, like a frequency they can't jam, like a truth they can't suppress. And that's driving them absolutely insane because they need things to make sense. They need control. They need the world to follow their script. But you stopped reading their script in 2019. You burned the pages. You rewrote the rules. You took the death they assigned you and turned it into the most powerful resurrection they never saw coming. Because while they were celebrating your erasure, while they were sleeping peacefully thinking you were handled, you were in the void. You were in the silence. You were in that space between endings and beginnings, between what was and what could be. And instead of begging to come back as who you were, you built something new, something they have no reference point for, something their systems can't categorize. Let's talk about what really happens when you die on record, but keep living in reality. You become untouchable in ways that terrify people who rely on documentation, on proof, on official stamps of legitimacy. You become a ghost with a heartbeat. You're not bound by their timelines anymore because according to their timelines, you ended. You're not playing by their rules anymore because according to their rules, you don't exist. You're operating in a space they can't regulate, can't monitor, can't control. And that space, that's freedom wearing a death certificate. They can't threaten you with consequences anymore because you're already supposed to be gone. They can't leverage your past against you because your past officially ended. They can't manipulate you with fear of losing what you have because according to them, you have nothing. You're a zero in their system, a blank space, a missing person who never went missing because you were never supposed to be found. And yet here you are, showing up everywhere, triggering every sensor, appearing in every frame, existing so loudly that their silence about you has become deafening. The security footage isn't just catching your image, it's catching their panic. Every time they see you on those screens, every time they realize you're still out there, still moving, still breathing, still thriving after everything they did to bury you, something inside them breaks a little more. Because they base their entire peace of mind on your absence. They told themselves stories to sleep at night. They convinced themselves that removing you from their lives was the right move, the smart move, the necessary move. They built entire narratives around why you had to go. But now those narratives are collapsing. Now those stories are revealed as the lies they always were. Because if you're still here, still strong, still rising after they declared you finished, then what does that say about them? What does that say about their judgment, their power, their control? It says they were wrong. It says they underestimated you. It says they celebrated too early, closed the case too quickly, moved on too confidently. And now they're stuck in a reality where the person they killed keeps appearing in their security footage, keeps showing up in their world, keeps existing despite their best efforts to make you disappear. And the wildest part, you're not even trying to haunt them. You're not going out of your way to appear in their spaces, to trigger their systems, to remind them of their failure. You're just living. You're just existing. You're just moving through the world like you have every right to be here, because you do. But to them, to people who invested so much energy in erasing you, your mere existence is an act of war. Your breathing is a threat. Your presence is a reminder of everything they can't control, and they can't handle it. So they watch the footage obsessively. They analyze every frame like it's evidence in a case they're trying to solve. They zoom in on your face, looking for signs of suffering, looking for proof that you're broken, looking for validation that even though you're still here, you're not really living. But they don't find that. They find someone who's walking differently now, someone who's carrying themselves with a weight they can't quite name. They find someone who looks like they died and came back with secrets the living aren't supposed to know. They find someone who's not apologizing for existing anymore, and that scares them more than anything. Because the version of you they knew, the version they had power over, that version apologized constantly. That version explained themselves into exhaustion. That version shrunk in rooms to make others comfortable. That version carried guilt that wasn't theirs, wore shame like a second skin, accepted blame for things they didn't do. But this version, this post-2019 version showing up in their security footage, this version doesn't apologize for breathing. This version doesn't explain why they're still standing. This version doesn't shrink, and they don't know what to do with that. They want to confront you. They want to ask how you're still here, what you've been doing, where you've been hiding, how you survived what was supposed to destroy you. But they can't, because confronting you would mean admitting they've been watching, admitting they still care, admitting that despite everything they said and did to erase you, you're still occupying space in their minds rent-free. And their pride won't let them do that. Their ego won't let them admit that the person they deleted is the person they can't stop thinking about. So instead they watch from a distance. They monitor the footage. They track your movements without making contact. They study you like you're a phenomenon they're trying to understand, a mystery they're trying to solve, a ghost they're trying to prove isn't real. But with every frame, with every timestamp, with every piece of evidence that you're still out there living your life without them, the truth becomes undeniable. You're real. You're here. And you're doing more than surviving. You're thriving in ways that make their carefully constructed lives look like performances. Because here's what they see in that footage that truly breaks them. They see someone who's free. They see someone who's not performing anymore, not pretending, not wearing masks to navigate social situations. They see someone who's raw and real and unapologetically themselves. They see someone who lost everything, including their official existence according to records, and somehow found everything that actually matters. They see someone who died on paper and was reborn in purpose, and they can't compete with that. They can't match that energy. They can't fake that kind of transformation. You know what the security footage really represents? It represents the moment their story about you stops being believable. They told everyone you were gone, handled, dealt with, moved past. They told themselves you wouldn't survive without them, without their approval, without their presence in your life. They convinced themselves that erasing you was a power move, that cutting you off was the ultimate punishment, that declaring you dead to them meant you'd actually die. But the footage proves otherwise. The footage shows someone who didn't need their permission to keep living, someone who didn't need their validation to keep growing. And now they're stuck with this cognitive dissonance they can't resolve. How do you reconcile declaring someone dead with watching them thrive on camera? How do you maintain the narrative that you won when the person you defeated is clearly winning? How do you convince yourself that removing someone from your life was the right decision when their absence didn't diminish them, but liberated them? You can't. So instead you watch the footage obsessively, looking for cracks, looking for weakness, looking for any sign that supports the story you need to believe. But you're not giving them that satisfaction. Every frame shows someone who's genuinely moved on, not in the performative social media way, but in the deep cellular way that can't be faked. You're not posting about how much better off you are. You're not making statements about your growth. You're not even acknowledging that they exist. You're just living. And that's the most devastating response you could give, because it proves that their presence in your life, their opinion of you, their validation or lack thereof, none of it matters anymore. You found something they can't touch, can't influence, can't take away. They're realizing now that the death certificate they issued, whether literal or metaphorical, wasn't your ending. It was your beginning. It was the permission you needed to stop playing their game. It was the release you required to become who you actually are, instead of who they needed you to be. And now you're out here, showing up in their security footage, in their spaces, in their consciousness, as living proof that sometimes the best thing that can happen to you is being declared dead by people who never really knew you were alive. Let them keep watching. Let them keep analyzing. Let them keep trying to understand how someone they erased is still showing up everywhere. Because every second they spend obsessing over your existence is a second they're not building their own lives. Every frame they analyze is evidence of their inability to move on. Every timestamp they study is proof that you're living in their heads without paying rent, without even trying, without even caring. You died in 2019 according to records. But the person they see in that security footage, that's not a resurrection, that's a revelation. And here's where it gets really interesting. Because you're not just appearing in their security footage, you're appearing in their dreams, their thoughts, their random moments of silence. You've become the presence they can't escape even when the cameras are off. They'll be in the middle of their regular lives, doing their regular things, and suddenly they'll think of you. They'll wonder where you are, what you're doing, whether you think about them. And it kills them that they don't know. It kills them that you're out there somewhere living a life they have no access to, no information about, no control over. They check the footage again. They look for patterns in your movements, trying to predict where you'll show up next, what you're building, who you're becoming. But you're unpredictable now in ways you never were before. The old you had patterns they could exploit, routines they could manipulate, needs they could leverage. But this new version, this post-death version, you move differently. You think differently. You exist on a frequency they can't tune into anymore. And that makes you dangerous in ways they never anticipated. Because the thing about dying and coming back is that you lose your fear of dying again. You've already been through the worst thing they could do to you. They already erased you, already cut you off, already declared you finished. What else can they do? What threat do they have left? None. And that fearlessness, that absolute freedom from their power, it's radiating off you in every frame of footage they watch. They can see it in the way you walk, in the way you hold yourself, in the way you move through space like you own it, because you do own it. You own your existence now, in a way you never did before. They're starting to understand something that terrifies them. You didn't survive despite what they did to you. You thrived because of it. Their worst attack became your greatest transformation. Their cruelest move became your liberation. Their attempt to end you became the beginning of something they can never be part of, never understand, never touch. And that realization is eating them alive because it means they gave you a gift when they thought they were delivering a punishment. They set you free when they thought they were burying you. And now every piece of security footage, every glimpse they get of your new life, every evidence that you're still here and doing better than ever, it's a reminder of their own emptiness. Because they didn't grow. They didn't transform. They didn't evolve. They just continued being exactly who they were, playing the same games, using the same tactics, living the same small lives. Meanwhile, you became someone entirely new. Someone they don't recognize, someone they can't categorize, someone who exists beyond their understanding of what's possible. Let's talk about what happens when they finally try to reach out, because they will. Eventually, their curiosity, their obsession, their need to know will override their pride. They'll send a message, make a call, show up somewhere they know you'll be, and they'll expect something. They'll expect you to react, to respond, to give them the closure they need or the confrontation they're craving. But you won't, because you're not the same person they're trying to contact. That person died in 2019, remember? And when you don't respond the way they expect, when you don't give them the satisfaction of knowing they still affect you, it will break something fundamental in their understanding of reality. Because they were so sure that despite everything, despite the death certificate, despite the time passed, they still had some power over you. They still believed that your world revolved around them in some way, that your transformation was somehow about them, that your new life was a reaction to losing them. But it's not. It never was. You're not living in opposition to them. You're living in complete indifference to them. And that's the thing they can't handle. People can deal with being hated. They can deal with being the villain in someone's story. They can even deal with being the source of someone's pain because at least then they matter, at least then they're significant, at least then they're part of the narrative. But being irrelevant, being so completely outside someone's consciousness that you don't even register as a thought, that's the ultimate defeat. And that's what you've given them without even trying. Because while they're watching security footage, analyzing your movements, trying to decode your new life, you're not thinking about them at all. You're building something they can't see, creating something they can't access, becoming something they can never be. You're not doing it to spite them. You're not doing it to prove a point. You're doing it because that's who you are now. That's who you became when the old you died. And this new version doesn't have space in their life for people who needed them to stay small. They wanted you dead, erased, forgotten. And in a way, they got what they wanted. The version of you they knew is dead. Gone, never coming back. But what they didn't anticipate is that death would birth something far more powerful than what they destroyed. They didn't anticipate that your absence from their life would be their loss, not yours. They didn't anticipate that the security footage would show them exactly what they're missing, exactly what they could never handle, exactly what they were too small to appreciate. So here you are now, existing in this strange space between death and life, between their records and reality, between what they declared and what actually is. You're a walking contradiction to their narrative. You're living proof that their power was always an illusion. You're evidence that some things, some people, some spirits can't be contained by systems, by records, by declarations of finality. And every day you continue to exist. Every moment you show up in their awareness through footage or rumors or the universe's strange way of making paths cross. You're rewriting the story they thought they finished. They can't unsee you now. They can't unsee you now. They can't unknown what they know. They can't go back to the comfortable lie that you disappeared, that you faded, that you became nothing, because the footage doesn't lie. The timestamps don't lie. The evidence doesn't lie. You're here. You're real. You're thriving. And that truth is following them everywhere they go, whispering in quiet moments, screaming in their insecure nights, reminding them constantly that they made a catastrophic miscalculation. They thought ending you would bring them peace. They thought cutting you off would bring them power. They thought declaring you dead would bring them closure. But it brought them none of those things. It brought them obsession. It brought them obsession. It brought them regret dressed as curiosity. It brought them the constant nagging awareness that they destroyed something valuable and now have to watch it flourish without them. And there's no security footage in the world that can change that reality. So let them watch. Let them analyze. Let them try to make sense of how someone they buried is still breathing, still growing, still becoming more every single day. Let them lose sleep over the paradox of your existence. Let them question everything they thought they knew about power and control and what it means to truly eliminate someone from your life. Because while they're doing all of that, you'll be doing what you do best now, living. Not for them, not against them, not in response to them, just living. Purely, freely, unapologetically. You died in 2019, according to records. But the person in their security footage, that's not a ghost. That's not a glitch. That's not a mistake in the system. That's the most alive version of you that's ever existed. And no amount of documentation, no official record, no declaration of death can change the fact that you're here, you're real, and you're absolutely unstoppable. They wanted you gone. Instead, they created a legend. And now they get to spend the rest of their lives watching that legend unfold on screens they can't turn off, in footage they can't delete, in a reality they can no longer control.
They thought they were untouchable. Oh yeah, untouchable. The kings and queens of their little kingdom of lies. Their arrogance, a crown of thorns they wore with pride. But here's the truth they couldn't see. Their throne, it was built on sand. Fragile, weak, just waiting for the tide to come and wash it all away. You've seen it, haven't you? That smug look, that condescending tone. They treated you like you were invisible, like your worth was just a shadow in their spotlight. Nah, they didn't see the fire burning inside you. Their arrogance blinded them. They didn't notice the storm brewing right in front of their eyes. Arrogance creates blind spots. It's like staring into the sun, thinking you own the light, but all you get is darkness. They couldn't see the cracks in their own reflection, couldn't see that their pedestal was crumbling while they looked down on you. Let me ask you this. Have you ever been dismissed by someone who thought they were better than you? Felt that sting? That burn? Oh, it hurts. But that pain, that's fuel. That's fire. Because here's the secret: they don't want you to know their arrogance wasn't about you. Nah, it was about them. Their fears, their insecurities, their need to feel bigger by making you feel small. But you're not small. You were never small. They thought they had you figured out, but they only saw the surface. The quiet you, the polite you. They never saw the fighter, the storm, the unshakable force waiting to rise. Every throne built on arrogance falls. Every single one. And when it does, the only thing left is the truth they tried to bury. You deserve more respect, more recognition, more than their blind spots could ever give you. So rise. Not to prove them wrong, but to prove yourself right. To show the world that no amount of arrogance can dim your light. Because their throne was sand, and you're the tide. Let them laugh, let them look down. Their illusion of superiority is their weakness. And you're just getting started. Let's get something straight. They acted like you were the issue. Like your very existence threw their perfect little world into chaos. But here's the reality check they didn't see coming: you were never the problem. Nah. The real flaw, it was their pride, their arrogance, their inability to see past the mirror they worshipped. They'd pointed fingers, made you feel like the weight of every failure, every misstep was on your shoulders. But take a step back, look closer, you'll see it. Their arrogance wasn't about you, it was about them. Their desperate attempt to mask their own insecurities with a facade of superiority. They couldn't handle your strength, your potential. So what did they do? They twisted the narrative, turned the spotlight onto you so they could keep hiding in the shadows of their own weakness. Classic move, right? But you're smarter than that. You see it now. You always had the power. Your arrogance screams louder than their words ever could. It tells a story of someone so blinded by their own pride, they couldn't see the diamond standing right in front of them. That's on them, not you. And let me tell you something: when they made you question yourself, when they tried to plant doubt in your mind, that wasn't strength. That was fear. Fear of what you could become if you ever stopped believing their lies. You've got to own this truth. Their arrogance, it's their prison. And you're free. Free from their expectations. Free from their games. Free to rise. So hear this loud and clear: you were never the problem. You were the solution they didn't want to see. And now, you're unstoppable. Their arrogance, oh, it was never real strength. Nah, it was a mask. A fragile facade they wore to keep the world fooled. To hide the truth, they were too scared to face their fears, their insecurities, the cracks in their armor. You've seen it, haven't you? Those moments when the mask slipped, just for a second. A flicker of doubt in their eyes. The way their voice shook when the pressure got too real. They act untouchable, like they're on a pedestal looking down on you. But deep down, they're terrified. Terrified of being seen for who they really are. Weak, small, desperate. So they built this mask, plastered it with arrogance, coated it with fake confidence, and thought that was enough to keep you fooled. But you weren't fooled. Nah, you saw through it. Every word they spoke, every act of superiority was just a little louder than it needed to be. You know why? Because they were overcompensating, screaming at the world, hoping no one would notice the cracks beneath. Here's the thing about masks, though. They don't last, they crumble. They break under the weight of their own lies. And when that happens, oh, it's ugly. So don't you dare think for a second that their arrogance was real power. It was a shield for their weakness. And you've already outgrown their games. Let their mask fall. Let their facade shatter. You don't need to tear them down. The truth does that all on its own. And when it happens, you'll still be standing, strong, unshaken, ready to rise. It stings, doesn't it? That sharp, quiet ache in your chest when they look past you, treat you like you're invisible, like you're less. Nah, it's not just a moment, it's a wound, one that cuts deep, one that lingers. You gave your all, your time, your energy, your heart. And what did they do? They brushed it aside, treated your worth like it was optional, like it didn't matter. It's not just rejection, it's betrayal. It's that moment when you realize they never saw you for who you really are. And yeah, that pain, it's universal. Everyone's felt it. But when it's yours, it's personal. It's raw. You remember every word they didn't say, every look that dismissed you, every opportunity they took to make you feel small. It's a storm that brews inside you, a mix of anger, sadness, and disbelief. But here's the twist they didn't see coming: that pain. It doesn't define you. It's fuel. It's the fire in your chest that says, I'm worth more than this. It's the voice that grows louder with every step you take. Let them underestimate you. Let them overlook you. Because the truth is, their blindness doesn't dim your light. It only makes your rise more powerful. Feel the sting. Acknowledge it. But don't let it break you. Use it. Transform it. Prove to them and to yourself that their ignorance was the biggest mistake they ever made. They might not have seen you before, but soon they'll have no choice. One day it just clicked, like a sudden burst of light in a pitch-black room. You looked around, and for the first time you didn't see yourself as the small one. Nah, you saw the truth. They were the small ones. Their arrogance, it wasn't power, it was a mask. Their belittling words, a desperate attempt to keep you down because they feared what you'd become if you rose. They weren't giants, you just spent too much time kneeling. And then it hit you. You're not the problem. Never were. Never will be. Their inability to see your worth, that's on them. Their loss, not yours. That moment of clarity, it wasn't just a realization. It was a transformation. A fire ignited in you, a quiet, steady blaze that whispered, no more doubting yourself. No more waiting for validation from people who couldn't recognize gold if it was handed to them. You stood taller, Walk stronger. Because you finally understood their opinions don't shape your worth. Your actions do. Their ignorance doesn't limit your potential. Your vision does. And from that day on, you stopped shrinking yourself to fit their comfort. You stopped dimming your light to make their shadows less obvious. You realized you don't need their approval. You've always been enough. This is your turning point, your rebirth. And the best part? They don't even see it coming. But they will. Oh, they will. They were so busy admiring their own reflection, so obsessed with the image they'd built for themselves. They never noticed the cracks forming beneath their feet. And you were the change they never saw coming. While they were lost in their own arrogance, you were growing, outpacing them, outthinking them, outshining them. They were stuck in their mirror world, blinded by their own ego. They didn't realize that every time they ignored you, every time they dismissed you, they fueled your rise. And that's the irony, isn't it? Their greatest strength, their inflated sense of self, was also their greatest weakness. They thought you were beneath them. Nah, you were just climbing higher, and they were too blind to look up. So why, tell me, would you let their blindness hold you back? Why stay stuck in their shadow when you've got wings to fly? They didn't see your worth, but who cares? They don't define you. They can't stop you. Let their blindness be their downfall. While they stay trapped in their illusion, you'll rise beyond their reach. Because here's the truth, their reflection doesn't matter. What matters is the unstoppable force you've become. They focused on their mirror. You focused on the horizon. That's why you'll win. Every time. Their opinions, their judgments. They were like chains wrapped around your soul, heavy, restrictive, pulling you down, whispering lies into your ear. They made you believe their words defined you. Nah, not anymore. You see, their arrogance was a cage, but cages can't hold a storm. And that's exactly what you are, a storm they underestimated. Every word they threw at you, every judgment they passed, only strengthened your resolve. Now, you're free. You've shattered their chains, broken free from the prison of their opinions. And here's the twist, they're still trapped, stuck in their delusions, drowning in their arrogance. Let me ask you something. Why let their small minds control your infinite potential? Why waste another second in their shadow when you can stand in your own light? Walking away isn't weakness, it's power. Real power. Because when you stop caring about their judgments, you start living for yourself. And that, my friend, is freedom they'll never understand. So keep walking. Let them watch as you rise. Their opinions don't define you. Your strength does. Their chains are broken. And you're unstoppable. They ignored you, looked past you like you were nothing more than a shadow on the wall. Silent, harmless, forgettable. But shadows, oh, they grow, especially when the light of arrogance burns too bright. And now, you're no shadow anymore. Nah, you've become the storm they can't escape. The storm they never saw coming. Every whisper of doubt they fed you, every ounce of pain they poured into you, it all built something fierce, something unstoppable. They feared this moment. Feared the day you'd realize that you were never the weak one. Feared the day you'd stop waiting for their approval and carve your own path. Well, guess what? That day is here. Now they're the ones running from the power they tried to bury, running from the person they underestimated. But here's the truth: they can't outrun you, because you're not chasing them. You're building something far greater. You are what they feared most. Not a shadow, not a victim, but a force, a storm, a reckoning. And here's the beauty of it all: you don't even need to look back. Let them fear. Let them run. Your rise is their reckoning. And your power, it's just getting started. Funny, isn't it? The ones who couldn't spare you a glance. The ones who turned their backs without a second thought. Now, they can't stop watching. Their silence was deafening back then. But now, oh, now it's their whispers that echo, whispering your name like it's the punchline to a joke they didn't see coming. They ignored you once, thought you were small, insignificant. And now, they can't ignore you even if they tried. Success has a way of turning heads, of breaking through walls they thought would hold you back. And your success, it's not just loud, it's a roar. A storm that silences their arrogance. You don't need their approval. Nah, that ship sailed when they chose to look away. But here's the kicker: they see you now. They see what you've become. And that's the loudest response to their indifference. The tables have turned, haven't they? You're no longer invisible. You're undeniable. And the best part? You didn't rise to prove them wrong. You rose to prove yourself right. So let them whisper. Let them watch. Because now, they can't ignore the storm they helped create. You've arrived, and there's no turning back. They thought their arrogance could dim your shine, that ignoring you would make you fade away. But what they didn't realize is this: you don't fade, you blaze, you burn. And your light, it was too bright, or too powerful. Impossible to ignore. Here's the truth: their arrogance wasn't your prison. It was their blindfold. They were too caught up in their own illusion to see your rise. And now they're forced to watch as you turn everything they doubted into something undeniable. You've taught them the ultimate lesson. That dismissal, that arrogance, it's powerless against someone who knows their worth. You didn't need their approval. You became the proof. And this is only the beginning. Want to know how to thrive when no one believes in you? How to make doubt your fuel? Stay tuned, because the best revenge? Oh, it's just getting started. You see it, don't you? The masks, the deception, the pretty little lies they sell to the world. But you? Nah, you're not like the rest. You don't just see the surface, you see through it. And that makes you dangerous. People love their illusions. They cling to them like lifeboats in a storm. They don't want the truth, they want comfort. And the moment you rip that comfort away, oh, they panic. They turn on you because you've become something they can't control. The moment you became aware, you became a problem. A walking, talking reminder that their world isn't as safe as they pretend it is. That their lies won't hold forever. They smile in your face, but behind those smiles, fear. Pure, shaking fear. They don't want you to see the strings, the hidden hands pulling them, the fake friendships, the empty words, the carefully crafted image that hides the rot underneath. But you do. You see everything. And that makes them hate you. You ever notice how they react? The whispers, the sideways glances, the sudden distance? Yeah, that's not a coincidence. The moment they realized you weren't one of them, they started planning. How to discredit you, how to isolate you, how to make you doubt yourself. But here's the thing. They can't unsee what you've become. They can't unhear the truths you've spoken. No matter how hard they try to erase you, you exist. And your existence alone, that's a problem they can't solve. They'll say you're crazy. They'll call you paranoid, dramatic, bitter, anything to make themselves feel safe again. But deep down, they know you're right. They know you've seen what they hoped would stay hidden, and that terrifies them. So what now? Do you shrink? Do you pretend you don't know what you know? Nah, that ain't you. You don't back down. You don't blend in. You walk through their illusions like a fire through paper, burning down every lie, every deception, every carefully built fantasy. Because once your eyes are open, there's no going back. They smile, they nod, they act like everything's fine. But behind those fake grins, oh, they're screaming, wishing, hoping that somehow, some way you'll forget what you know, that you'll close your eyes, that you'll go back to being just another pawn in their game. But you won't, nah, that door's been slammed shut forever. You see them for what they are, masters of deception, architects of illusion. They thrive in the shadows, twisting reality to fit their story. But you are the light, and that makes you dangerous. They hate what they can't control, and you're uncontrollable. You don't fall for the sweet talk, the false promises, the carefully planted doubts. They can't make you dance to their tune, and that drives them insane. So they fight back, not with fists, not with open war. No, they're too cowardly for that. They do it in whispers, in rumors, in calculated moves designed to make you doubt yourself. Gaslighting, lies, manipulation, anything to break you. They'll call you crazy. They'll make others question you. Suddenly, you're the villain in their twisted little story. Not because you did anything wrong. No, but because you know too much. And that's a crime in their world. Watch how they move, how their words shift, how they go from laughing with you to laughing at you, how they build their little army of fools, all feeding off the lies they spread about you. They need people to turn against you, because if you stand alone, you stand undefeated. They'll test you, push you, try to bait you into reacting. Because if they can make you look unstable, they win. If they can make you doubt yourself, they win. If they can break you down, silence you, erase you, then the truth dies with you. But here's the kicker. They can't silence you. Not really. Because the truth doesn't fade. The truth doesn't bend to their will. The truth doesn't play by their rules. And as long as you stand tall, they'll always be afraid. So let them whisper, let them plot, let them scramble in their desperation to shut you up. It only proves one thing: you've already won. They can't control you, So they do the next best thing, shove you into the shadows. They make you the outcast, the problem, the one who changed. But it wasn't you, was it? Nah, it was them. The moment they realized you weren't blind anymore, they turned their backs. They act like they don't see you, like you don't exist. But oh, they do. Every move you make, they watch. Every word you say, they dissect. They need to know what you're thinking because it terrifies them. You're a mirror, and they hate what they see staring back. So they twist the story, make you look like the one who's lost it. They call you paranoid, say you're making things up. You overthink too much. You're imagining things, yeah? Then why does the air shift when you walk into the room? Why do their voices drop? They need the world to see you as the crazy one, the liar, the problem, because if others believe them, they don't have to face the truth. If they turn enough people against you, they can pretend you never saw through them in the first place. And for a moment it stings. The silence, the cold shoulders, the way they laugh just a little too loudly when you're near, as if to remind you, you're not welcome here anymore. But let's be real, you were never really welcome to begin with. It's a game, a sick, twisted game of isolation and manipulation. And they think you'll break, that you'll crawl back begging to be accepted, that you'll say, you were right, I was wrong, let me back in, but nah, you don't beg. You never beg. Because here's what they don't get. Being alone isn't a curse. It's a gift. You don't need fake smiles. You don't need empty words. You don't need people who only love you when you're blind and obedient. You stand alone, but you stand free. And while they huddle together, desperately clinging to their lies, you rise. Stronger, sharper, unshackled. Because isolation, it doesn't destroy you, it forges you. And by the time they realize that, it's too damn late. The moment you spoke the truth, the war began. Not a loud, obvious war. Nah, a quiet one. A war fought in whispers, fake smiles, and knives hidden behind backs. You didn't attack them. You exposed them. And that's something they'll never forget. You became the villain overnight. Not because you lied, not because you schemed, but because you saw, because you refused to play along. And that's the greatest threat to people who survive on deception. Someone who sees through it all. So they rewrite the script. Suddenly, you're the one who's bitter. You're obsessed, crazy. They twist your words, distort your actions, make you look like the problem. And the worst part, some people believe them. Because lies, they're easier to swallow than truth. They gather their army. They turn friends into enemies, strangers into judges. They spread their version of the story, making sure you're the one painted black. Watch out for them. They just love drama. They think they know everything. It's funny, really, the desperation. Because that's what this is, desperation. If you were really crazy, they wouldn't need to work so hard to prove it. If you were really wrong, they wouldn't be scrambling to silence you. The harder they fight, the more obvious it becomes. They're afraid, terrified. And you stand in the storm, untouched. You don't need to defend yourself. The truth doesn't need an army. It doesn't need backup. It just is. And no matter how many times they try to bury it, it keeps rising. Just like you. Let them panic. Let them throw their tantrums, their accusations, their empty threats. You are not the villain of their story. You are the end of their illusions. And That is power. You don't bow, you don't break, and that drives them insane. They're used to pulling strings, used to watching people dance on command. But you cut the strings. You rip the mask off their little illusion, and now they're scrambling to put it back on. They thrive on control. It fuels them, keeps them feeling powerful. But you refuse to play their game. You refuse to nod along, to be another pawn in their little kingdom of lies. And that's why they hate you. Because they can't manipulate what they can't control. See, weak minds are easy to bend. They feed them half-truths, sprinkle in some fear, and watch them fall in line. But you? Nah. You question, you analyze, you think. And to them, that's a threat. Because intelligence is a weapon, and yours? It's aimed straight at their deception. They want to be the smartest in the room, the most powerful, the one who decides what's real and what's not. But your very existence proves them wrong. You shatter the illusion just by being. And every time they see you, they're reminded of their own weakness. They try to flip it. You're just difficult. You always have to question everything. Why can't you just go with the flow? Yeah, right. What they really mean is, why won't you let me control you? And the answer? Simple. Because you were never meant to be controlled. So they push harder. They try to twist your words, rewrite the truth, make you doubt yourself. They'll do anything to keep their illusion intact. But it's already cracking. Their fake world is crumbling under the weight of reality. And you didn't even have to lift a finger. They hate you because you expose them. They hate you because you can't be fooled. But most of all, they hate you because deep down, they wish they were you. Wish they had your strength, your mind, your ability to see through the nonsense. But they don't, and they never will. So let them rage, let them throw their little fits, their desperate attempts to regain control. They can't win this battle, because the truth doesn't bow, and neither do you. They threw everything at you, lies, manipulation, isolation. They tried to break you, tried to make you doubt yourself. But here you are, still standing, unshaken, unmoved, and now they're the ones who are afraid. They thought they could keep you under control, thought they could keep their grip tight enough to suffocate you. But every time they tried to tighten the noose, you just laughed. You saw through their tactics before they even put them in motion. And that drives them mad. See, people like them, they rely on ignorance. They count on people being too blind, too afraid to see the truth. But you tore the blindfold off. You walked into the fire they set for you and came out untouched. And now, they don't know what to do. Their tricks don't work anymore. Their words fall flat. Their power, it's slipping through their fingers like sand. And no matter how hard they try to claw it back, they can't. Because you've made sure of that. You saw their every move before they even made it. Checkmate. Now, they panic. They scramble, desperately trying to regain control. Maybe they try to rewrite the past, twist the story, make themselves the victim. But it's too late. The illusion is shattered. And they know, deep down, they've already lost. It's almost funny. The same ones who thought they were untouchable are now drowning in their own lies. They wanted you blind, weak, obedient, but now they're the ones stumbling in the dark, trapped in the very game they created. They whisper, they plot, they throw accusations, but none of it matters because no one believes them anymore. The power they once held is gone. Their own arrogance was their downfall, and their biggest mistake? Underestimating you. So let them fall apart, let them self-destruct under the weight of their own deception. They wanted you broken, they wanted you lost, but instead they're the ones spiraling, while you stand tall, watching them collapse into nothing. Their hatred is a compliment. Oh yeah. They don't even realize it, but every glare, every whisper, every desperate attempt to tear you down, it's proof. Proof that you've got something they don't. Proof that you are everything they wish they could be. They wanted you weak, wanted you scared, wanted you questioning yourself, but instead you did the opposite. You stood taller, you grew sharper, you took every dagger they threw and built yourself an armor so strong they can't even scratch you now. Every insult, you turned it into wisdom. Every betrayal, you turned it into resilience. They thought they were breaking you, but all they did was teach you how to thrive under pressure. They made you unshakable, and now they're watching, helpless, as you rise. Now you don't fold under their judgment. You don't shrink just because they can't handle the truth. If anything, their bitterness fuels you. Their hate is your fire. The more they try to bring you down, the higher you climb. See people like them? They hate what they can't control. And you're untouchable now. Their words? Empty. Their games? Weak. You've leveled up beyond their reach. They can watch, they can envy, they can plot, but they can't stop you. You don't fight like they do. You don't waste time throwing stones at those beneath you. Nah. You just keep walking forward, keep evolving, keep proving that you never needed their approval. Their hate isn't a weight, it's a boost. Every attempt to destroy you has only built you stronger. They see it now. That's why they hate, because deep down they know. They failed. They tried to bury you, but you weren't the seed, you were the storm. And now they have to live with the fact that nothing they do can break you. They fear you. Not because you've done anything wrong, but because you've seen too much. Because you can't be fooled, controlled, or silenced. They don't hate you for being wrong. No. They hate you because you're right. Let them whisper. Let them scheme. Let them twist the story in their favor. It changes nothing. The truth stays the truth, no matter how hard they try to bury it. And you stand firm, untouchable, immune to their petty games. Nah, you don't need their approval. You don't need to beg for a seat at their table. They wanted you to doubt yourself, to shrink, to apologize for being aware. But you don't owe them an apology. You owe yourself the power of never looking back. They tried to dim your light, but all they did was make it shine brighter. Now they watch from the shadows, envious, desperate, wishing they could be you, wishing they had your strength, wishing they could unsee the truth that you made impossible to ignore. And that's what burns them the most. They know they lost. They know they can't deceive you. They know they have no power over you anymore. And nothing terrifies them more than someone they cannot control. So let them hate, let them seethe, let them drown in their own frustration. It only confirms what you already knew. You were never the problem. They were just scared of being exposed. And you were the mirror they couldn't stand to face. Your power is in the truth, and no one, not them, not their lies, not their pathetic little games, can ever take that away from you. Stand tall, walk forward, own your power. Because once you see the world for what it really is, there's no going back.
The clock.